Good afternoon, Tartarian hunters. Tartaria, Australia. Kelly here with Autodidactic. Hey, Campbell, how you going?
Good, good. How you doing?
I like your new backdrop. Look like what we've got. Australia's first
Yes.
Tartarian artwork of the State Library here in Melbourne. Going to put out some cool Australian Tartarian graphics here to start filling in some details from our cities and buildings around the area.
Yeah,
It's really
indeed.
cool.
And that's got an interesting dome. That's got the changing dome, that building, hasn't it?
This building does my head in. When I did a little podcast on it, and then I went back to look at some of the history of it, the photos of that dome, honestly, it like breathes. Some
I know.
photos, the dome's this small, then it gets really tall, and then it breathes down. And now, if you stand outside the State Library, you can't even almost see it. Like, it's barely noticeable. It's just you can't see any of the facade, just the top of it. So I don't know what the deal is with that dome, but it definitely through, I don't know if it's the Photoshop things that go on with these old photos, but it's a dodgy one. You guys have fun looking at that one. It's bizarre.
It is. It is. It's just, yeah, too weird. It starts with a huge dome, doesn't it? Straight out of like bloody Italy or somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
So, well,
And
look, equinox
Melbourne.
yesterday, equinox yesterday, and Melbourne. Oh my God, Campbell, what chaos we're seeing.
Yeah, equinox, full moon the day before, and then yesterday in Melbourne there was a rumble that they're calling an earthquake.
What?
Cracked the top off a building.
Fucking Australia doesn't get earthquakes, by the
And
way.
Australia, and the whole story, right, of earthquakes is they say that it's tectonic plates moving, right, and so you get earthquakes on the boundaries of the tectonic plates.
Yep.
Australia has none of those boundaries. We sit on our own plate.
Yeah, right.
So I mean,
It was dodgy. So, and what was weird, well, obviously we all know now that it came out at a 10K depth, which if you followed through last year's disclosure, you guys all know what that means. We don't even have to mention it, but that's probably everyone's hope that that's what it was. But I have to say, like, it was weird because on my chat, someone sent, who has friends in New York, sent me a screenshot of the Australian news coming out with earthquake interferes with police protest plans, and it was published at 7:18 a.m. in the morning, and the earthquake didn't strike Melbourne till 9:18. So I don't know what is that. I mean, that's weird, right? It's so I didn't do any research into a follow-up, but this is odd. Would say that it was pre-planned. And
yeah, I saw a video of a guy and he said that when it hit, he said he was in his house and it was shaking. He said he ran outside his house and he said the ground wasn't shaking, and he turned around and looked at his house and his house was shaking, but the ground was not shaking.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
Yeah, and he was thinking it was like some kind of Jew or scalar weapon or something.
Okay.
Or
well, that's interesting. Okay, because if it was the DUMBs, then like potentially they knew exactly when it was going to happen and could easily have released this notion of an earthquake before it happened, could easily have put that, so we don't question anything, we just accept that. But the thing is, right, we don't get earthquakes in Australia or Melbourne, so the fact that we've all just gone, it was an earthquake, like it could have been anything.
And it's just weird that it was, well, that they say it was 10 k's down and what, 20 k's from the city.
Yeah, well, no, 200. It was
200.
That's
far.
it was in a
so
out
out there,
was Mansfield, out near the snowy, like the snow skis, the ski.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, and so it cracks the top off a building in Melbourne in the city.
Yeah.
But there's no path of destruction heading that way, like to show the tremor.
Yeah, that's right. And it's also on a ley line. It's also on the ley line right through Alice Springs as well, and Uluru. And Pine Gap. Yeah. So look, we're just saying that potentially this earthquake may not have been what was presented to us, but if that's the case, you can see how easily that information is just like dumped into our consciousness, you know, like it was just immediately the most obvious thing was earthquake, and then that's just what came out everywhere. But it's actually the most unobvious thing to have an earthquake in Melbourne. So if you skip over that actual fact, like you could look at all sorts of
and
other.
it's obviously not an earthquake.
Yeah.
This earthquakes, we've all seen videos of earthquake. And what did they say? It was over 5, wasn't it? 5.5
Yeah,
or something.
5.6 to a 5.9, almost a 6.
So this is the thing, like you get a 6.5 to 7 earthquake, and that's massive destruction.
Yeah.
And we've seen the videos of like 6s and that, and people in their houses and everything's shaking.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, you know, why just one building?
Yeah.
I've heard nothing of any other even damage, let alone destruction.
Yeah.
It's just doesn't make
But
sense.
it's like one building just needed to give some visual aids to the notion of an earthquake, and then that's all it took. One video of a few bricks falling down, and then of course our lovely mainstream media, and bang, done, job done. That was just an earthquake. Everyone go back to sleep. It's all right. Whatever. Okay,
Yeah.
so, but that also freakily timed with the equinox here in Melbourne, which is a very powerful portal date, especially this year. Oh my God.
It's exactly, it's the one, the next date we have, the solstice is the 21st of December, 2021. I mean, some nice gematria in there, you know, nice number play. And we all, you know, I think we all know there's something big coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course we have the Melbourne Protest. So now that's been intense. Like I've walked around the city and it's intense. Like literally for the last 4 days, you wake up and go to sleep with the sound of helicopters just full on. They're just hovering all over the city. You've got police fucking everywhere, and they're not like, they're marching in packs, and they've got full on outfits on, and there's just thousands and thousands of them. Like you move through the city like you're entering a war zone, and that you're conscious all around you at all the times. Like, are you going to get stopped? Are you going to run into a group of police? You're going to turn a corner and you get arrested? Like, it's freaky, man. Like yesterday when I walked through
Germany,
it took a lot of confidence in me to like just march through and into the protest area, and then see all the roadblocks, which were at all the major roads and across the bridge, and you couldn't actually get to the protest, right? And then but yeah, like, and to walk past those fucking police without crossing the road, I was proud of myself. I was like,
yeah,
I'm gonna own my sovereignty. And that's what this has done for us all here in Melbourne, because man, the people who haven't worn a mask and the people who've done the protesting, they've grown their balls. And we now, like, and with that ball growing process, you lose a lot of fear. Basically, that's what it is. You just start to lose your fear, which is starting to free you from the enslavement program and respect for authority.
But this is why that, you know, their plan doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, because they just seem to be shooting themselves in the foot, because, you know, the more you take away from someone, you know, the less they have to lose.
Yeah.
Right. And this is what's happening. And, you know, obviously, you know, the tradies were doing well, you know, they were working for the last 18 months. A lot of them say they were working more, getting higher pay. And then suddenly within a week, bang, all taken away, which was good. You know, obviously woke a lot of them up pretty quick, but we've also got to look out for, I mean, and I've got to say, they've all been so good too. I mean, they may have got a little bit, you know, what do we say, excited outside the office that morning, but in general, that, you know, they've been good, because this could all be, you know, and this is why there's cops everywhere, and we've seen like army looking people and helicopters. Are they trying to incite something, you know, because this is the thing, if the people turn on the police and there's a big massive fight and a riot, then they'll go, oh, martial law, we need martial law to keep everything, you know, down. So, you know, everyone in Victoria and Melbourne, you know, they've been doing so well, but yeah, just keep that in mind to, you know, don't buy into their crap, because we see what's happening, you know. And at the shrine, they literally said, if you want to leave, there's a clear path down there, go down there. And then some people went down there and they got arrested.
Yeah, right.
And they literally said, if you go down there, we'll leave you alone. And that's why everyone then went back and got all, so, and of course it was all portrayed differently. But also Rushkin, the real Rushkin, he got interviewed on CNN. Did you see that?
I did. I know. But you know what's happened today? This is so yesterday, the police started off by, they turned up in tradie clothes and basically like infiltrated the crowd and then ambushed them. And like what we saw with the scenes yesterday with them shooting into the crowd and the noises, like that's just the most surreal experience to witness here in Australia. But today there's these like tank-like cars roaming around the city with this weapon on it, and it's blocked all the live feeds. So no live feeds are getting out of.
I was wondering what happened.
No live feeds are getting out from Melbourne today. And so no one can coordinate using the live feeds, which is what was being so amazing yesterday and the day before. So it's like they've literally, it works with Facebook, and they've literally blocked all Facebook lives, and it's like a total weapon against. So I mean, if we're ever seeing exercise right now in how an agenda can basically lock down and lock up and silence a city like this, that how different is that action to being in China? Because ultimately now the world can't watch what is happening in honesty with the live feeds. They can't see any independent journalism. No one knows where anything's at. Like the police have shut it down. And so no one knows what's going on. Like that's a scary motherfucking world right there.
Yeah, that's just so, you know, what we call Nazi Germany, and that whole, you know, not just that, you know, Stalin, you know, Bolshevism, all this kind of stuff. It's all the same. And, you know, for anyone who thinks this has got anything to do with anything medical, I mean, why would they block any information at all? Why would they do that? I mean, it's ridiculous that this is clearly unlawful. So, I mean, there's a lot of, you know, people out there doing good things, though. We've just got to,
I mean, like for them to like put like images of like these stormtroopers aiming guns at the population, and then with headlines like protecting your health, like it's such a I just can't believe that sort of programming still works. Like it's go you know, go to war for peace. That exact go to war for peace.
So, war is like, peace. We're
protecting your health by shooting you dead.
And
what?
I was looking at some of the comments on one of the posts about yesterday, and I was just amazed at how many people were still saying you're just making lockdown go longer and things. I mean, it's at this point it's psychosis, man. It's like it's, you know, and then we get back to the whole bots, NPCs. I mean, and with social media, this is the thing. If it's a text post, you know, we don't know. I mean, it's literally 50-50 minimum that it's a bot. Probably more, you know, if you're talking about certain subjects. So, you know, how much of this is even propaganda, and how much is, and this is exactly what they do, right? In all of these takeovers and dictatorships, they just mess with the information, all disinfo. And like you said, it's so people can't communicate and make plans and form, you know, syndicates against
absolutely
the tyranny. So,
and it's so timely, everyone, to like be presenting this and documenting it and being in the thick of it as we, you know, do the Tartarian show, because like 200 years ago something happened, and for sure there were us in some form, like with some form of resistance and some form. There were definitely humans that knew what was about to happen, and that's us now, like watching it play out. So like it's like we're reliving the script, like we're reliving the history almost. Like, so we have so many questions about what really happened to the collapse of the civilization, and how did they take it over, and how did they disperse all the bodies, and what the fuck happened. And here we are literally looking at how this, like we're actually living that answer, it feels to me.
And this is why we've got no information. Now we can see why there's no information in the past. And I mean, I'm sure there's more than we've got that's hidden, but they just, they destroyed all. They don't want information. They just want to wipe everything and forget that anything existed and change the story and start from. And that's what, a reset is. Obviously we have cataclysms and natural resets and that, but then most of the resets are this, they're information takeovers. They're just resetting the population. So I mean, obviously, but this time, well, we don't know, I guess, what happened in the last times, do we? But we're definitely onto them, and people are waking up. So what's the deal? I think we just need to make groups, I mean, so can they still broadcast, like stream on other, like Rumble, do you know, or is it just Facebook?
Nothing seems to be getting through today. Like nothing. There's no, my
like
feeds
it's a Wi-Fi
really
blocker
quiet.
or
Nothing seems to be moving. Yeah, like nothing. Like I'm at work. I've been at work and it's been fine. And but on my different Telegram groups and stuff that have like been really following the protests, very little's coming through. So
I noticed that as well. Wow.
So something's blocking something. They may actually, if it's a Facebook collaboration with a weaponized government weapon, crowd weapon, then they're probably already identified using algorithms every single potential feed that has been working with any sort of coverage at all from all the channels, and has just put a block on it all. So I don't know. It's a trippy time we're in, and I think it's really interesting. Like if we want to answer the Tartarian question, we can look at what's happening today, and we know for sure there's a consciousness that is onto it, and there would have been back then as well. And we also know that no one's really explained where all the bodies went before, like, and they may themselves have reached a natural ascension event, something like this, that took them. They may have like managed to do what I hope we are on our pathway to do, which is enter this, get out of this game, basically, whatever that is, just to get out of this.
Like the Toltecs, no, Olmecs, wasn't it? Who just disappeared.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And there's more story. There's, they're not the only story of a, tribe or a people that just disappeared.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I was looking at, I was watching some stuff on, orphans and this whole story of, genetic manipulation and we're genetically made, and that, which obviously ties into all the, the monsters, and the cryptoids and all that kind of stuff. And it was interesting, because obviously we've got the orphan trains, we've got all these, children, all this stuff, all these, parents without children, but then we've got the, these other people that were clearly still out there on the, out there on the earth somewhere. These tribal people normally that were found.
Yeah.
And you mentioned in the Strong's interview, was it 12 strand? Is that what you said?
12 strands. Yeah.
DNA. So is that like a non-genetically modified DNA?
Well, I think so. I think that's one that hasn't been reset and repressed and altered.
So because what do we have? Are we 2 strand? Is that right? Or is that just the double helix? Is that different?
I don't know the answer to that. We're
we're
past 2.
Chromosomes.
We're definitely past 2. So I can probably quickly Google when we bring up some pictures, but I just was actually, you just reminded me about the that little post that came through about the orphan boats here in Melbourne. So I'm just going to get that ready to show.
Cool.
But sorry.
I was thinking, is that the difference between people that can see and people that can't see? Is it because
there'd definitely be some
some people are literally, they've got a blocker in their gene code or whatever, so that they're only at a certain level, and that's it. Where people who have the natural DNA or whatever, they can move up, they can expand that and they can see more and
potentially the consciousness that we project forward. I mean, we were born into this whole game in some capacity, however we want to explain it. In some capacity, energetically, our souls have been born and reborn into this system. And we know that that's been going on for a little while. And at that time, absolutely, I have heard many stories about there being an energetic implant, the back of our necks, that is like utilizing our astral bodies and energetic bodies. So if you look at the pictures of you know, like reptilian shadow beings plugged into the back of people's chakra energy
I've
centers.
seen that, yeah.
So,
and
and that's
also
where they
Neo, that's where his plug is in the back of his neck.
yes, exactly. So if you look at the same theory as an energetic something attached to us, then
Like
potentially
parasite,
yes, and feeding off us, and potentially as we open up our minds and drop the programming, because that's all we're doing, we're just dropping programming, aren't we? We're not I don't know how many original thoughts we've had yet. We're just constantly in a state of like getting rid of the program, it takes up
dropping
a lot
stuff
of
and remembering. I agree, that's all we're doing.
So maybe as we do that, that implant is deactivated, or becomes useless, or isn't a resonance. We've outgrown it, we've expanded past it, and as a result, we're switching on different DNA codes.
It would have to be frequency based. It would and so if we go above a frequency that they can't go above, then we're useless to them basically, as a food source or whatever.
Absolutely.
As a power source.
So, I mean, I do transmissions every month with an amazing teacher called Jen McCarty, who she works in the 5D. And so basically there's a whole crew of us from around the world that, you know, hundreds of people that come together and on all the portal dates and all the equinox and solstices. And so I'm very used to working in that 5D space, like lending my energy, and we do a lot of visualization. She downloads and runs us through visualizations, and we're always performing an action. So there's always, we're on job, you know, we're in service and doing the job. And we're like a little ground crew, if you like. So today we threw a lot of energy into Melbourne and stuff, but and last time we worked on the hearts of the police chakra heart. Anyway, point is that I'm very versed in working outside of whatever my 3D egoic space wants to play with, which takes up all my days, you know. So when I do that work, I know that energetically we are activating and deactivating and moving stuff around from that level. But because we've not been taught about it, like it's not something we know anything about or understand, it's like it ceases to exist. It's like, you know, like that old metaphor of the Indians staring at Columbus coming up and can't see the ship. We can't even see our work in that level because we know nothing about it. So essentially, you got to have a lot of faith. You got to trust that you're a servant of God in some capacity, and that your energy is far stronger than what your little ego body says you are. So I always encourage people, especially in this consciousness, to like be lending their energy to that war that's going on right now. You know, get off your asses and do some, you know, work in that realm.
And just whatever. It doesn't have to be something spectacular. Just whatever there is you can do. You know, who know? You know, just whatever. Just put your energy into something good. You know, because we've got to get rid of all these buts, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it's good, but no, because as soon as you say but, what you're saying is, oh, I'm just going to side with the dark energy. It's easier.
Yep, absolutely.
You know, that's it. And at this point, that's all you're doing is helping. So bit of trust, you know, just step out in a bit of trust and see what happens.
And like at the end of the day, that realm is your imagination. Like that realm is the land of your imagination. That's where your intuition is. That's where your direct connection is to innocence, in no sense, in nonsense, imagination. Like that's the place where you do that work. So man, sitting down for 30 minutes and doing a meditation where you're imagining the world you want to live in, and you're imagining the takedown of these lies, and you're imagining these beautiful outcomes of truth and light and love on the planet. That's powerful shit, guys. So
it is. And the reason, you know, if you think it's all airy fairy, well, why do they have the news? It's all they're doing is just programming people what to think. And that's exactly why we are where we are. Well, you know, especially, you know, it's focused on Melbourne, but you know, we as a collective have built this through fear, and that's what they do. That's why they keep pumping the fear, so that we keep thinking, bad, and we help them. You know, so let's stop doing that.
Fuck it, fuck them. Let's stop doing that. You got to own your own imagination, guys. Like it's so me. You don't need a guru for that. You don't need a master or a teacher or anyone above you and any books. You don't need to read anything. You just have to sit there and make some shit up in your head about the world that you want to live in. And that will like add so much power to the creation of that.
Yeah, just go for it. If you're listening to other people, I mean, that's, you know, you need information, but if you're creating off that, all you can create is what they've already created. You know?
So Campbell, like, let's get to business here. So into some Tartaria Australia talk.
Yes.
So last week we had that amazing interview with the Strongs, and that was like met with so many great comments, and like definitely people are eager to start to hear more about Australia in depth and how it relates to this sort of consciousness unfolding. So call out to anyone in our community watching this who has any information or anything that they would like to add to the piece, the picture, to do with Tartaria and Australia and the story of our original people and our like real history here, and anything that you could add to that. If you'd like to get onto the podcast with us, don't be freaked out. It's so cruisy. And just have a chat, or, you know, email us. Like, it'd be really cool to start from within Australia, bringing everyone's piece of the puzzle together.
Yep. Yeah, just go into the Facebook group. We'll leave a link below, but Tartaria Australia. Tag Kelly, and yeah, let us know that you want to come on, and we'll hook up, because this is the thing. It's, you know, everyone out there is a piece of the puzzle, right? There's people out there that've got all this information that so many people would want to hear. So if that's you, even if you don't think it's spectacular, if you've got some information, let us know, and we'll get it out there, because you know, we need to uncover and the more that we uncover, you know, the true story, the more that, you know, this facade story starts to look, you know, more silly for more people.
Absolutely.
It's definitely practical as well.
Yeah, I mean, we got to do it, guys. We got to like work together as like one creative mind as we uncover this, because I knew nothing about it apart from my own, like, I stumbled across it, fucking understood it straight away, was ready for it, connected it all, and then just started making videos of Melbourne, where I am, like, and that's just allowed us now a platform. So you don't have to have like the most top secret information to feel like your information's viable. Just like, come and join us, come and talk.
Yeah, exactly. We all started somewhere. God, my first video was crap.
So, all right. So we thought we would do it like, there's two things I wanted to talk to you about today, which was the Shrine of Remembrance.
Yes.
Having been highlighted by our protest yesterday, that's where all the tradies gathered, and it's like now been like this hot talk. So, and having a look at that's actually been fascinating, guys. So you wait till we run you through that. And the second thing was just to touch base on the orphan boats that came to Australia. This was in a Facebook feed that I got the other day, and I thought, wow, I've actually never seen photos, so I wanted to bring those up. So what order do you want to do this in?
Let's jump into the shrine, shall we?
Let's do it.
I've got a couple of pictures. Do you want me to bring them up?
Yeah.
All righty.
So the history of the shrine, ... I'll get up the history.
Yep. Yeah.
And you get up the pictures.
I'll get the pics and you can narrate.
It's an interesting one, because with the Shrine of Remembrance. So that was yesterday. Yep.
So
look at that.
So basically, not Romanesque at all.
Basically, they're telling us that this was built in the early 1920s. So around 1917 to like 1920 something. And I couldn't find any construction photos, which they definitely should have had then. Look at that. I mean, what? No construction photos apart from scaffolding over the columns, which we see all the time in these old photos. So it definitely, Campbell, could have been something that they just blocked off from the population. And we're starting to really get the sense that when they say, opened on 1929, what they actually mean is like, we formally invited people to come and see this thing that we have not let them see up until now.
Open to the public.
Yeah. And have you noticed that with all these, because I've been diving into Melbourne, I keep noticing the same fucking phrase. It goes like this. And then they held a competition to see who would design it. Like, I hear it in every friggin' building as I look at, then they held a competition.
That's how architecture started. No one knew how to design buildings, so they just held competitions and people randomly just designed them, and they just happen to be the best buildings ever built and still standing, some of them. So amazing.
I mean, the amount of people that like actually got to enter these architectural competitions was quite profound in the 1800s, I tell you. So look at that.
Look at this one. Yeah, this is, wish it was bigger, but you can see, look at the landscape here. This is clearly finished.
Yeah.
And I mean, clearly not brand new, right? Look at all the what do you call that, seepage or whatever out of the bricks, all the black. And look at the level on this ground.
Yeah.
It's going everywhere. And look what's on the top.
Yep. Is that still on the top now in the new
I think this bit is, but this sort of
yeah,
whatever this stuff is, that's all being taken off. But that's, you know, we see that everywhere, right?
So it definitely looks like it's something that could have been dug out of the mud. Like the bricks look like they definitely took some maybe water damage. And
look at these columns. It's just,
yeah, I mean, look at the columns, and it definitely feels like there was a lot to go. We should get this one done as an artwork. It feels like we're on the tip of something huge with the Shrine of Remembrance. Do you get that feeling?
Yeah, it's I mean, it just looks like the top of a big building, or I don't know, it could even be a citadel, because in Fremantle we've got a war memorial, and maybe it's something we should look into, is all the different ones. And because the one in Fremantle, I'm pretty sure that's a star. It's a star that's been buried. And
you got a picture there?
For not maybe
okay,
not handy. I can find one.
Yep,
but I can get some together for next time. Yeah, because you know, they're big square built. They're so, you know, like, why? For a shrine of, and this is the inside of it.
Yeah, right.
Like, look at that ceiling.
Wow.
Like that's again, you know, that's fractal geometry stuff. That has no place in a shrine of remembrance that's just built to remember fallen servicemen. That there's no point. All these Roman pillars with the scrolling, that they have no place being there at all. It's got nothing to do with Australia. It's got nothing to do with, you know, anything. And you can see that the only thing to do with the war, they clearly look like they're different stone to the rest of it. They're a lot lighter, and clearly they could have just been put in there.
Absolutely.
They're not part of the structure.
Yep. And those, of course, the tops of those columns we see all around the world, don't we? Yeah,
everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. You see that sort of symbol, that scrolling. I mean, look at this brick too, this cut. Well, that as well, that looks like, I don't know, stone, maybe it's sandstone, but that looks like a facade. You know, they just cut them like tiles and just put them over, and then they just sort of can change the look of it all.
So obviously, and we've got the central feature there.
Yep.
That comes up a lot also in the Tartarian buildings, which used to have the like engine or something on it, like the machinery.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just look at this. It looks like some kind of cooling station, doesn't it?
It does.
It doesn't. I mean, this is the thing. You know, the only thing about this whole structure is these little plaques of people killing each other. That's the only reason it's a shrine of remembrance. Like everything else about it. And this one, is this on top of it? This must be something behind it. Must just be a funny picture. See this big spire thing?
I think that's the road. I think that's
I see. Yeah, right.
Maybe. I think because I was standing. I
couldn't work it out. Yeah.
I think that's what it is, because I was standing in the middle of the road yesterday, about where that ends, that pointy bit, and I could see right up to the Shrine of Remembrance.
I mean, and that's another good look how straight that road is.
Yeah.
Like literally, I thought that was it. I couldn't work out.
That's like Swanston Street, right up through the whole city, and it's flanked by Flinders Street Station and St. Paul's Cathedral.
And what do we see when we look at cities from above? You know, cities like Canberra and Washington and all these places, just these massive long boulevards that lead to buildings like this. And of course, we've got these sunken.
Which is so weird.
These are new, aren't they? These were added. these
And they're so
sunken
weird.
bits.
It's almost like an inversion of the Star Fort. Like, what is that shape? It's just so strange.
It is. And in the old pictures of this, you had one, Kel, and there was actually a wall
Yeah.
around here, wasn't there?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's gone.
Yeah.
But just the layout, and we've got, of course, it's got the circuit, right? The circuit road, but that's really so typical, you know, especially with that massive boulevard of what you see in Europe.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely. And so you can see that it's outside of the other buildings I've been exploring, which are across the rivers just in front of that road.
in here,
yeah. And so most of the buildings are on that side. So this easily could have been kept away from, and like it probably didn't even need to be kept away. It just needed to be formally noted publicly that we have just opened this thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you think with new cities, you know, new cities, not that we see them, you know, new cities
well,
anymore. Well, where there's a couple out there.
Oh yeah.
But they start and it's like, well, and they still do it now with like new estates. It's like, well, here's, you know, the suburb that you all go and live in. Now that's full. Here's the next one. Yeah. Here's the next one. So they keep people in a certain area.
Yeah.
You know, and where that of course the housing is close to where they work, so they don't, you know, venture out, you know, and
absolutely,
you know, and it doesn't matter if a couple people see it, you know, oh, that's just a rumor, you know, blah blah blah.
And you're like, you look at these. I mean, like, there's fucking. Have you guys done any research on the ghost cities? Like that blew my mind. Like there is literally hardcore, massive, millions of houses, like fully built out cities that have all these mimicking of the old realm, all built into them. Like when I first saw it, though, these ghost cities that are all around the world, a lot of them in China, a lot of them around the China, Mongolia. When I actually looked at them, I was like, oh my God, that's the reset right there. Like they just like kill out the populated areas, like reset everyone, and everyone moves over to the new cities and loses their consciousness for the old cities like Melbourne, and then they do their thing and then reintroduce everyone. Like we don't even know if all the people didn't actually go missing because they weren't in their photos, if they were just not in another place on the earth, like in another city that we don't even know about because it's been deleted from our history and Google and everywhere else. Like they could just have been in one of these Chinese ghost cities for all we know. Yeah.
Oh, exactly. I mean, we all know what Google Earth does. It you know, we've got they supposedly got all this technology, and what happens every year, instead of it getting better and it's able to see more, it gets worse and we can see less. And now to the point that you can zoom in on some buildings and it's like you're looking at a game. Like it's clearly not a photo. It's clearly got nothing to do with reality. It's just like some, you know, 3D bloody image. Yeah. But here again, here it is. Now you can't really see the wall there, but this is pre those things. Interesting, it's got these 4 points. And with that new stuff, the one thing I did notice is, you know, it turns it into an 8-pointed star, or there's also that, what do they call it? The 8-pointed asterisk. There's another thing that appears a lot, that asterisk thing. So yeah, that's just another point. And I think that's all the photos I've got. Look at this. What's that building down there? Yeah, I've got some of old Melbourne, but yeah.
Just get my bearings. If that's the road, that could be the military college. I will go and check that one out.
Got a nice big dome there.
It does have a nice big dome.
But I mean, that's a good perspective shot, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
Because that building, it's got a dome. I mean, that's clearly a fairly sizable building. Because here's the road, and it literally goes a whole block. Look at the size of this.
Yeah. Yeah. Right? Exactly. Yes.
What is going on there?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
and it looks so Egyptian pyramid-y. It looks so, I mean, it's the weirdest design.
It's like, just, and it's so short, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's way too short. It's literally like the top of a building that you see in New York in the 1920s.
Yeah.
It's like the top of one of those skyscraper things.
Yeah, absolutely. Like there is so much more underneath that ground. Yeah, absolutely. I'll show you the picture I've got of the really old one. I wonder
if that's wheels, like depicting what it was. If it's, you know, like spinning. If it actually did have something in the middle, it was spinning. It's, you know, telling us it's a machine.
Well, it definitely has that sort of vibe. Like it has a sort of funnel for the energy. Like it's got like that sort of
Yeah,
up and
yeah,
out sort of vibe.
yeah.
Because you know, like
Definitely.
have you seen all the photos of the pyramids recently? And they've all got these massive columns of light coming out of the tips of them.
Yeah.
Like they've been popping up all around the world, even in like non-official pyramids. So yeah, they definitely harness energy in some capacity, and that looks like no exception.
Wouldn't that be awesome if a big,
Well,
big beam of light started popping out? That'd scare the police.
I mean, it's not, I mean, you can't like the coincidences of the protests yesterday after the earthquake all accumulating onto the Shrine of Remembrance, which potentially has got the capacity to like blast out something is, you know, it's fascinating to me.
Mm.
I think like what's happening in Melbourne is not this weird event that like is made up of all these random coincidences.
It's a ritual.
Yeah, it's a ritual. Yeah, agreed. Agreed.
I think that they really wanted, I mean, clearly they tried to incite it. I think they wanted everyone to fight back yesterday. They wanted, you know, they wanted to start a war basically with all the tradies. I mean, they literally went in and just started shooting them with rubber bullets.
They did.
So they were clearly trying to get some kind of result, which gladly they didn't. So hopefully that sort of stuffed them up. But
it definitely feels like it got like they've definitely ambushed the situation and done it with such terrible what's the word, like they've just been such
intention,
terrible intentions indeed. Yep.
Mm.
So I'll just I'll bring this image up and screen share this to you guys. This is just one that I found interesting because it was one of the original, hang on, let me screen share. One of the original drawings, apparently, illustrations, because of course they didn't have cameras back then, but they didn't because no one can make up their mind for their photos or weren't their photos. But yeah, can you see that? That's got a like a real,
it's got the wall around it, which is now got now gone. Yeah. It's also, look at all those statues. It's got 4 statues. They're not there anymore. And are they like obelisks, like the twin poles? Look at that.
Yep.
In on the 3 directions.
Yep.
That's very.
And doesn't it look like it's been placed in one of those like cymatic gardens, those really high-end geometrical.
Yeah, like you see it like the Palace of Versailles and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And
definitely. And you know, this is the thing with drawings, right? Is, I mean, you know, we never know how true it is, but they've got this massive thing that clearly would have, you know, taken a lot of time and effort to build that.
Yep.
But look what's in the background. There's nothing.
Yep, exactly. And the thing with illustrations is like people are pretty bad with their imaginations, especially after a reset. Like it's not like, you know, I don't think that's why I really like the illustrations we look at with Flat Earth British. Like I'm just like, yeah, this is more historical than everything else I've seen, because like you'd have to have fucking insane imagination to come up with these illustrations and these monsters and these like interpretations. Like to me, that's what they were seeing. They were illustrating what they were seeing.
Well, yeah, this is the thing. If it's crap, then how come all these people illustrate the same things?
Yep.
Right, the same. Like every continent has stories about, you know, werewolves and vampires and other weird creatures and elves and dwarves and gnomes, and you know, it's in the consciousness, but we're not allowed to talk about it. Well, they don't want us to, because you know that lets us see more, right? That's stuff that's in a wider band of frequency, and they don't want us opening up to it. But I agree. And one thing I noticed, like as well, I had another drawing, but that one as well, the perspective.
Yeah.
Where's this guy sitting?
Yep.
He's pretty high up in the sky, right?
Yeah.
And look at the rest of the background. That they're trying to tell us he's not up in a building. So, you know, airship, anyone?
Crazy, hey? So yeah, I mean, there's some really weird little, I mean, that's very, I like that one. It's got a very, you can see the regalness of what it.
And also it's like the Strong said, you know, back in, you know, when these were all being, these would have been commissioned drawings.
Yeah. Yeah.
So commissioned by the, so if they went up and showed something that wasn't accurate, you know, they would have been laughed at.
This is the first one. This is the only one I found that had any form of construction going on. Of course, classic.
It looks pre-1928 though, doesn't it? That landscape. There's nothing there. A couple of farms. It's.
Do you have a? Did you say you had a photo with the mud, just surrounded by mud?
Oh, that was that one that we saw.
Oh, that's one.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, I only did it. I'll have a look and see what else I can find. But
yeah,
I think we'll next time we'll maybe go into all of, you know, the memorials and shrines, and of course, you know, this is called a shrine, right? And you know, what do those people who meet in funny groups like to call themselves? Shriners.
Yeah, exactly.
So who's this really built for? Who's it really worshipping? You know,
I mean, did you do a search on there? I did a search for like anything connecting to any sort of satanic, ritualistic, anything like that. I couldn't find anything, but that just made me think there was definitely something. So
we'll have to get Dale on and ask him, he'll know.
Yeah. So this is 1934, apparently.
1934.
Yeah.
Okay, well, hang on to that, because if we can find a picture from like 35 or 36 that's, you know, doesn't have that wall and all the statues, it's like, well, what's going on there? Because I've never seen those statues before.
Well, they're gone from this photo, I think. Anyway, the mysteries. So, all right. So I wanted to show. So any other thoughts on the shrine? I mean, I definitely, like, in summary, let's summarize.
Is that an obelisk?
Huh?
See in the background there? Can you see my cursor? You probably can't.
I can't see your cursor. Which little
off
photo?
To the right-hand side, kind of just off, just angled off. Oh, sorry, left-hand side. I guess is it for you? Everything's reversed.
Classic.
On the hill there's just a really, really big, tall thing.
Are you talking about this photo?
Yeah. The one that's on the screen still, the old one.
Oh, I don't know
the
where
same
you
photo
are.
of you. Oh, you've moved it, but
I've moved, buddy.
Okay, it hasn't moved.
It hasn't moved. All right. Let me just stop share, and that will get us back to thing. So I'm just going to bring up. So, I mean, I just think that basically we're looking at something very Tartarian, obviously. It's been there for a very long time, obviously. It feels like it's got, it's the tip of a much bigger structure. We could probably deep dive and find lots of evidence of just mud everywhere. I would say they really had to dig that one out. I think that's what they did during that time period. The bricks, they look, you know, like they've had water damage and a bit of that sort of moisture damage going on. And there's no construction photos, of course, and nothing about the interior like relates to Australia. And really, like, apparently that thing got opened, like, basically World War I happened, and Australia, when World War I happened, like, Australia, like, Melbourne had been in existence for like not very long.
Yeah, 1918.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Like one lifetime, basically, one generation.
Less than 100 years, yeah.
Yeah, less than 100 years. And then we send everyone off to war, like, because we've got so many people here to send back off to war. And then bang, we build a pyramid.
Yeah, and you know, that'd be a good thing to look into, is because clearly, you know, that whole period and World War II, you know, most of, well, 80-90% of the working men were gone. And then, of course, you know, when they came back, a lot of them were dead. So you have this massive shortage in workers, don't you? So, and I'm sure if we look back, they'll give us a massive line of buildings that were built in those years.
Yep.
It's like, well, who was building them?
Yep, absolutely.
So
I know it goes.
it look into that.
It literally goes. No one was here. White settlers turned up. Nothing was here. Just Indigenous camping. Gold rush. Melbourne. Yep. Great Depression. War.
Like, a few years. War again. You know. Yeah.
And we had to send. Not only did we send all our able-bodied men to the gold fields,
Yeah.
Like, and then we sent them all again to the war, and in between that we had a Great Depression.
And that's the best thing about the gold fields, you know, the gold rush. You know, and literally every story is they just went out and it was just a patch of bush. And then, you know, within 10 years, there's massive red brick buildings everywhere. But all the people who could actually build those buildings, they were out trying to find gold.
Yeah.
So who was
Find
building
gold.
the buildings?
Yeah.
And who was making the bricks and who was tracking everything in? You know, this just doesn't exist.
Who was building the factories that built the buildings? Like building the factories that built the bricks, that built the buildings.
Yep.
You know, that's what I said. Like yesterday, I was walking around the city just to sort of like, because it's equinox, to sort of like vibe around with some God energy back in the city. And I went to St. Paul's Cathedral, which is right next to Flinders Street Station, and walked around the corner of the cathedral. And like, there was this amazing scene of this like Tartarian archway and like this beauty. I'd never seen it, right? And I actually went through a moment where I actually felt this like energetic time shift going on inside me, because all these buildings I have seen basically over the last 20 years, but this specific one I had never seen. And it was so embellished and so still there and so Camelot-y that I was just like, whoa, man. Like, and then I was just looking at, and right behind it is like this block of apartments. And I'm just thinking, it is absurd. It is absurd for us to stare at these buildings and then say 200 years ago, we had the capacity to build them. And then right behind it is our current capacity. And you're going to argue with me or try to debunk the fact that like we went from that to this in 200 years. Like, it is an absurd debate.
It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
You know, and you go to every single, you know, pioneer village, and what do they show you? Wooden shacks.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, if they, but then you go to the narrative, oh, red brick buildings everywhere.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make. There's one story, and they're clearly trying to cover it up with another one and hope no one looks too deep. Because you don't have to look that deep to just go, oh my God, this is just all a bunch of crap.
Yeah, basically 5 hours and you're done with the program buster.
It is.
So it's just so obvious. It's just so obvious once you see it.
And it's spreading too. I was just like, I don't know, it must be the last, you know, 4 or 5 videos I've watched that from people that have got nothing at all to do with this genre. And they're all mentioning it.
Yep.
They're all starting to talk about the past and history. And when as soon as the word history pops up, someone's in there with Tartaria and the buildings. It's just,
I know.
It's growing so, you know, like literally a year ago, like no one knew, you know. I remember I was posting pictures on Facebook and, you know, no one knew anything. They would just say, oh yeah, they're nice buildings. But now people are like, oh yeah, you post that and they're like, oh, that's Tartarian. That's, you know, so it's, you know, if you think there's no great awakening,
oh man,
I don't know where you are sitting in the corner somewhere.
We have become so annoying with like podcast. Oh, what have I just done? Hang on, I've just turned on a video.
Oh,
I have to mute myself to find the video I've just unleashed.
Oh. Can
you hear that?
I can't see or hear.
Okay. Well, somewhere in my feed right now, I'm playing a video. So I was going to show you the Facebook page with the orphans.
The orphans.
But I have to, you're going to have to just talk for a second while I figure out where this video is that's playing.
Cool. Yeah, the orphans. I've actually done a video on it a while back on it. Probably need to revisit it, but yeah, orphan trains everywhere, even in Australia. And of course, with Australia, they try and, you know, change the narrative a bit and call them, you know, like child convicts and all this kind of stuff. It's more that, you know, they were, which is even a worse story. You know, it's not that they were kids without parents. It's no, we were just grabbing kids from Britain and sending them over here and calling them thieves because they were hungry. So we've got this massive story, but, you know, you look into, you know, the numbers and the boats, you know, the amount of boats that came here and stuff and what had to come with them as far as troops and horses and all the stuff, you know, there's just not enough transport to get all this stuff here, you know. So again, it's like, where did these, you know, kids come from, and why was there such an abundance of them? And what seems like, as far as we can see in the pictures, an abundance of adults. Like we see adults with no kids, like none, like no teenagers, no little nothing. And then suddenly you've got all these orphan kids and all these adults that are like holding these kids like they don't know what the hell they are.
Yeah.
So and that was only, 120 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's, we just, yeah, something's.
It's an absurd story. It's another
It is.
absurdity with this whole thing.
It is. And that's probably another thing, because we know the orphan trains, there were orphan boats, and this is also the shifting of the populations, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You move everyone around so no one's got a tie to the land and no one's got a heritage, and you just give them their false one and get them, really offended when people tell them it's wrong, and off you go.
I tell you, like, I did a post the other day, and it just came up. There was a carousel here in Melbourne, and like the bullshit history on it was like in the 1859 or whatever, these people, they decided that they wanted to import this carousel to Melbourne. And like, I'm just thinking in my head, like, now take it, like, it's not like they had airplanes or cargo ships or freaking Amazon delivery. They literally had to load, like, you got like these boats leaving from the UK. They're a set size. They've got to carry on those boats enough supplies to get on this massive journey. This isn't like a get in there and get off in 24 hours. This is like a month at sea.
Yeah.
And survive all of that and feed everyone and provide water, and like that's enough of a bulk. And then to add shit like a carousel, like a merry-go-round, like an organ, like the biggest organ ever in Australia, like none of it makes sense. We would never, if you were a functioning society that seriously was pioneering a new country, like your priorities are like not carousels. Your priorities are, of course, your basic needs for survival. And like, we're talking about how much resources had to come over here, if this story was true, to build what is in front of us now. Like, it's virtually impossible. You couldn't even do it with like the Evergreen at your service, with literally a million shipping containers full of things.
It's no, I mean, look what goes on today, with it takes, when people build, custom built machines and that, takes years, and then when they come over, I mean, everything has to be so like literally this piece goes here, it's all this massive thing. But
there's
then
no
they
IKEA.
have to send a team with it as well.
Yes.
Who can actually read it and either assemble it or teach the other people how to assemble it. So it's not like you just, like you said, you don't just go on Amazon and go, send me a carousel. And
if you lose a part, you can't just go and order one. You have you've got to get mail back.
What about maintenance?
I mean, there's so many things.
Right, they have to import it all from overseas. So when something breaks, one of the cogs breaks, what happens? Sorry, guys, shut down for 9 months. And that's if what they send over is the right piece. I mean look at what happens today. How many you get the wrong stuff all the time.
And like there would have been a skew of things too. And then you look at like you can't just call someone. Like you'd have to like write it all down and put it on a boat back. And then that was 6 months and then back. Like it's just absurd.
It's absurd. And it's not like these were, this was before, Henry Ford, before the production line. It's not like that. Everything was pretty much a one-off.
Yeah.
So to make it, you have to make all the dies and everything to make every single little piece of machinery. You like to make a little cog, you have to make all the stuff to make that cog.
Yeah.
And then, so it's, I think, people living today kind of look around and it's such a, quick fix, instant, click together society that people think, oh, well, it just would have been simple.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. No. Once you start looking at it and really thinking about it, because that's really the only difference here. It's like whether you've just bothered to stop and think about it. Because if you like stop and think about it, like it's all of it's absurd, none of it makes sense, and it's all completely impossible. Like if you actually bother to think about it, it's like them telling us that like a house built out of like logs in the forest can literally be done in like 10 minutes. It's like, it's that absurd. Like it's impossible. There's so many actions that have to follow through to bring something like that together. If you have built a home and participated, how much has to come together to like be a plasterer and the plumber and the builder and the tiler and the landscaper and the doing the foundations, like you've got to think about a lot of stuff. Like it's absurd to think like the building behind me was up in a year. It's just crazy.
It's stupid. I mean, it's hard enough just to build a wooden shack when you're in a new country.
It is.
And you've only got, because they don't have tools. They might have, a good axe and a good saw. They got to go and make their nails and make the shingles. And you've got to think about glass. Where's all this stuff coming from? I mean, they're not going to go out and collect sand and melt it down into glass panels. And just to build a little shack back then would have been a massive undertaking. Yep. So, you talk about this, and there's no trade schools, right? Yes. Where's all the, the tradies coming from? Where are they getting, trained?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, there is no story, but I can imagine what that, they'll probably say, oh, they're all apprentices from Britain, or overseas. And it's like, oh, you've got a tradesman now. You can go out and make money, or we can send you off to like a penal colony over somewhere where you've got no family. What do you reckon? Yeah. No one's going to come,
It is absurd. And like, so, I mean, what I found the orphan one's always like been, that's a tough one for people to deal with but it's a lot nicer than last year's disclosure around children. Like,
well, yeah,
it's because there's a bit of separation in time.
Is that, part of it that they believe they own us
for
and
sure.
like property,
Yeah.
This is a thing that might be how they, explain it away to themselves,
Yeah, I mean, we're branded and labelled and given a number and a pat on the bum and a certificate when we are born.
Well, exactly right. Yeah.
That's what happens to us. They own us. Like, I mean, just today I was like fighting with my council at my farm because like I'm really opposed to paying council rates. Like I fucking hate
they're
that
illegal.
shit.
It says in the Constitution, no third tier of government.
I know. And my God, the threats you get about them coming in and taking your house and selling it. And I mean, it's just absurd.
Write them a letter and just say, can you just prove
of course
just prove that you've got any authority at all. Send me the paperwork.
Yes, I should actually. A
council has any authority.
Yeah, I know. I've been on this council now, like dealing with this one for like 13 years.
Councils are horrendous. I don't know why they're so bad.
Annoying. Oh God, they're so
illegal. They just
illegal.
seem to attract all the Karens and Darrens, don't they?
They are, and they are so illegal. It's basically Robin Hood. It's basically the serf mentality.
They just sit there and siphon money off everyone.
They do. They just rates taxes payable, and you've got no choice. And then they threaten to take your property home.
You get nothing for it. You question them, and they threaten.
It's a serf system. We're in a serf system there, and like, do you fucking have the energy to fight back? Like I have been doing for 13 years with them, and like I just get put with like the accountant or the secretary or whatever, and like occasionally the mayor will write to me and like put in something and give me some act, here's the act, blah blah blah, and it's just like come on, let's get through this game, guys. Let's get to the other side. So all right,
so great, you just say, come on, this isn't a play, we're not acting.
It's just like, yeah. Anyway, like 20 years ago, inalienable rights and straw man and learning about that was fascinating to me. Like I was just like right in there, like I am down this rabbit hole. And I was really exciting, and when you have to like continue to apply it for the next 20 years, it gets exhausting because you're dealing with like a system that just like is illegal to start with. So they don't care if you're telling them they're illegal. They're already illegal. They don't care. They own that shit, man.
But most of them, like especially the cops, they don't even know the law. They have no idea of their jurisdiction or anything, and neither does anyone really. But they all think that they know everything.
Yeah.
And they'll just sit there and they want to prove they're right, but they just know nothing.
Yeah.
And the worst thing is they'll sit there and they'll argue with you to prove that they're a slave.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are you doing? Jail's that way. Just go and ask them to lock you up now.
Sorry, we'll shake all that energy off for a second because I read this post this week. I have to read it to you before I show the pictures because I can't do both at the same time. So basically this was about the proof of orphans coming into Melbourne. So proof that there were ships here in Melbourne specifically dealing with orphans. So, and what it reads in the post is, hang on, sorry. is Sir Harry Smith, ship Hobson's Bay, Williamstown, Victoria. 4 ships were used for reformatories for children from 1864 to 1872. Some were sent out on the Hulk, the Success from England, as Port Arthur was ordered closed by Queen Victoria, as she heard of the atrocities, whatever. The children were kept in single cells and given menial tasks during the day. After the number exceeded 500, comprising orphans, this is on a ship, just 500 on a ship, neglected children and children who had committed minor offences, the ships were deemed unsafe. Some children were sent to F divisions at Pentridge, which is a jail. Others were sent to a reformatory school in Geelong, Ballarat, and the rest went to Mount Royal Hospital in Melbourne in 1877. So, and then the author here says, the author, by the way, is Tony Bayer. And it says, I've tried researching public records on this subject. Many records were destroyed in the early 1970s under order of the British Royal Crown and the Victorian government.
Nice.
I have an interest as I worked at Mount Royal Hospital as a registered nurse in the 1980s, pulling out beds, I found cast iron hoops embedded in the wall. These were used for children's shackles. It was a different time. Remember Charles Dickens' story, Oliver Twist. England was burgeoning with orphan children. What better way to rid London of them by sending them to Melbourne? If your surname is Smith, you are a Melbourneite, you may be descended from these boys and girls. So let me screenshot.
So brought over in cells and then put into prisons. And they call them orphans. I mean, no.
I'm being very
good story, bro.
So that's one of one of the ships. And let's see if I can show you all of them. Yep.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, that's one of the ships. Yeah. I think I don't know if they're workers. They look like men.
Yeah, they look like they just
But that's a pretty fucking big ship, man.
Big pirate ship, man, and it's called Success. That's not a very nice.
So basically, they're saying that 500 children at a time was kept in single cells on these ships.
That's God, very small cells. I heard Max Eigen actually the other day, and he mentioned that in Port Arthur, when you look at the old buildings and the cells, that they're very small. Look like they're,
for children.
Like exactly. Like a man couldn't actually lie down in them. So were they all for children?
Oh, for children, because we didn't import convicts, we imported children and soldiers. That's what we imported to Australia.
So where did all these children come from? I mean,
these are the illustrations. Sorry, it's a bit blurry, but so basically it looks like they were just basically chained up. So I'll see if there's any. I think that's all picture wise. But yeah, I mean, these are the depictions, and like this reminds me of some of Martin's pictures with the giant ships and the little cities on top. But yeah, like, I mean, we're talking pretty big stuff.
And this is the thing. I mean, I wonder how many people are descended from orphans. I mean, it looks like, if we look into it, we probably, most of us are, because we don't really know our history, do we?
We don't know our history.
I mean, who can name their great-great-grandfather? Not many people.
No, not at all.
So we're a displaced population, but then, they give us all these stories. We as white people seem to have missed out on most of them. Seems to be other sort of cultures that have a more ingrained story that they really hold on to, and it becomes so ingrained that you can't question it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is clearly part of the whole program, right? Why would you put something in if people can question it? That'd be an extra thing. Oh, if we got someone pop in.
Yes, we've got Marty.
Ryan. Oh,
Marty's
Marty
popping
Ryan.
in.
Oh.
Marty Ryan, he's our special surprise guest for this day. But I just finished. Hi, Marty, are you there? Put on your video if you'd like to jump onto the call. I'm just showing some pictures. So look, this is one of the pictures. That's all kids. Can you still see that?
Yeah, wow.
Yep. Look at them. Isn't that
they
just
had
classic?
to work. They had to work as well, and then at night they get locked up in their cell. That's nice.
I'm here.
Hi.
Hi. I
We just-
can't start my video for some reason. With the studies and things that I do, I'm constantly fenced and censored and all sorts of stuff. Sometimes I have trouble even posting to Google comments. So if you can hear some grunting, that's my little chihuahua in the background with me.
Well, welcome to the Tartaria in Australia page, Marty. I put out the call the other day to people in the community to come and join us on the podcast and just contribute what they have. And you answered via the Flat Earth map. So welcome, and introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm here. I'm going to shed a bit of light onto the shrine today, because I know Kelly said that Campbell's been wanting to do a piece on it, and I've got probably a little bit more knowledge than the average Joe Blow about it. I've learned from a very great man who I'm trying to get involved with you guys and do a whole piece on it, and hopefully that'll happen soon. But I think what I'm going to show you is really going to bring to light some further studies for those who are into Tartaria in the whole
Awesome.
geometry and the placement on our plane, and what it does to create a realm and give authority to that realm and the leaders of the realm.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Sounds intriguing, Marty.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Have you got things to show us?
I've got to try and sort this video thing. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to share clips, but I'll work on it while you guys keep going in the background. I really, really appreciate all the hard work you guys are doing. I cannot emphasize enough to people, these guys are on the pulse.
Thank you.
Stephen and Ewan Strong, my gosh, did that resonate? It sent fizz right through me. My hairs on my neck and my arms were standing up. I've watched so much of their stuff. You guys are awesome, absolutely awesome. And hopefully with what you can share with the country and the world is going to open up a whole new lot of knowledge as to what the whole Tartarian buildings and what they were really for. It's going to open it up for them, and we're going to re-invoke the power of that.
Awesome. Awesome.
Thanks for the opportunity. I'm going to mute and try and work on these, sharing these frames.
Yeah, okay, cool, Marty. Well, when you're ready, just pop back up.
Thank you.
Awesome. Oh, I love it when we get the community involved, because we never know what's going to happen. And this whole Tartaria consciousness is just, as we were saying earlier, we all hold a little piece within us.
And it's just really growing very quickly at the moment, this whole topic. So it's
absolutely,
it's exciting times. I've got some old pics I can bring up if you want to.
Yeah, bring some up. So I mean, how's those
chat.
orphan ships? So that literally was the first time I'd actually seen proof of boats with here in Australia with kids, and that hasn't been like circulating very broadly. So it's pretty cool to see those. So thank you for posting those on my feed. I've just I can hear dozens of helicopters above my head.
Oh my gosh, really? God.
Imagine if in the last reset there was people just like us doing this sort of podcast, but they were talking about the civilization before their civilization.
And they're going, there's bloody airships buzzing over me all day long.
I've got a little bit to add here.
Yeah.
What we saw yesterday in Melbourne, I'm hopefully going to show you a bit of a video which we did on July 31st, 2020, where we actually went to the shrine and we had the police and the media there, and they fronted us, and we were standing there under the correct line of authority during a lockdown where the whole state was locked down. It was the first major lockdown.
I was there.
Okay, well, what three media channels, 7, 9 and Sky News, put out a story that we were anti-mask protesters and they moved this on. We rebutted that with a video, and within minutes of our video being released, they then retracted every media clip offline. So we stood there correctly, and what you're going to see is you're going to see the police tell the media to eject, because we'd stood in the correct line of authority. We actually filed documents with the federal government, the state government, all the news channels, and what came from that told them that they could not get the media involved in what we were about to tell them and what the line, using the line of authority. But you'll certainly get a good idea of what happens when you know how to invoke the power of that holy ground. Because on the ground there, it states this is holy ground. Channel 7 did a news clip yesterday that it was a sacred site. Once you know how to plug yourself back into the Anzac, you can stand and command with the authority of our Anzac, and they cannot do anything. What you saw yesterday at the shrine on Rukshan's clip was they stood in a circle. If you look at the shrine above, which is one of the clips I'm trying to get online to share, I'll actually try and get it sharing now. What you're going to find, this will stop others. No, can I do it now? Can I?
Yeah, give it a go.
Now, yeah.
Continue. Where are we? Screen 2 and share.
Have you put a clip up on Rumble of this? Was that you that I saw? Were you one of those people?
No, that was actually, you're going to recognise the other guy in it, but I'm thinking that's who you're talking of.
Yeah, someone who got, I think he had a backpack and he got stopped and he just basically, yeah.
No, that's another guy.
You can't, you know.
Seen that.
Oh, okay, there's a good one. All right, I can send you the link.
Okay, can you see that shrine from above?
Yeah.
Sure can.
Use the motorbike going up the street. What we see here is, first of all,
Big
look
cross.
down this line, which is a direct north-south line. We see a very distinct cross right across here, the shrine in the centre of it. Now, what happened was after the conclusion of the war, World War I, Queen Victoria had sent out here previously a telescope right here, the observatory, to map out a very particular place and location of what's inside this shrine. And at 11:11, on the 11th, you get the light shining from the east through a little portal square on the side of the building right here. And I've got a photo of it. I'll try and get it up here somewhere. What happens is, no, it's, I'm going to open a new one.
So on the 11th of the 11th at 11:11.
Yeah, exactly. It's that remembrance, time of remembrance. What happens is,
which is all twin pillars, right?
Yeah, this is what happens.
Oh my God, it's Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, it is. It's good old Harrison Ford, and that light shines through the hole, and it shines onto a place in the on the ground where there is a foundation stone planted to become the realm of man. That is the foundation stone of the Australian Anzac. Okay, there's some other clips here. I'll just go through them quickly, the pictures. Okay, now that was Channel 7, the guy that says that it's, see the police here?
Yeah.
What they're standing around is this here. Here is a very particular symbolic representation of what the Freemasons use as their teaching and their emblem of the compass and the square. It's squaring the circle. So you can actually get a compass and you can draw a circle from the center point, the foundation, right round that there, and you'll get the rounded off corners. And the edges that are flattened off are the square of squaring the circle, which is the secrecy of masonry. Now, I can go a little bit into masonry, which will probably open a few people's eyes, but I did the study because I was of the opinion that all Masons were evil and all the rest of it too. But what you'll find when you do the study is what's happened is in ancient times when Masonry started, the Roman Church were well and truly on their way into warring across Europe and seizing people's sovereignty and taking it under their own, the armies and the countries into their own control, if you like, enslavement with what's called today the Sesquivay Trust of 1666. That was what happened. Was the Great Fire of Britain or London raged through, and they claimed that everybody had got in boats and travelled out to sea and were lost at sea. That enabled them to take everybody's estate under a trust, and that was the start of the great enslavement and the papal bull that Santos Bonacci refers to as the enslavement. It was real and it was set in law. They stated in the papal bull that we own every soul on earth, and nobody rebutted it, nobody argued it, and thus they took the entire population and every soul into custody under their enslavement. Yeah, I knew this was going to be a ripper. I'm not going to tie it up. I'm not going to go too much in depth. But what happened was Masonry started, and Masonry gained that much momentum because of the fact that they stood honourable, that all across London and other parts of Europe, families would hand over their estate, and I'm talking their entire estate, for the Masons to educate their children and to teach them a trade, thus the Masonry. And they did that. They sent people's children on pilgrimages all over the world. And because of the estate and the trust that people had in the Masons, anywhere they went, whatever their children needed, they were cared for, they were taken in and provided for. And Masons travelled the world, and they built so much of the infrastructure around off their own bat. They never asked anybody of the people that contracted with them. And the Catholic Church, the Vatican, saw this as a great threat because they were gaining so much momentum. So what happened was the Vatican sent the Mongols, basically every country on earth, every armed force warred with the Masons to push them underground. And then the next thing that happened was an infiltration took place where the Vatican and all the other alphabet agencies that we hear about today started infiltrating. And today we have a very, very insidious, incestuous breed of Masonry. And at the core of it, there are still some very, very honourable Masons. The Anzacs were made up, I think 1 in 3 of the Anzac were actually Masons. So don't push aside the Masons until you've done the adequate research and look into the history of it, because what they've given us and what they're showing us is still very relevant, and a lot of them are standing in honour. But enough of that.
So wait, can I ask, Marty, can I ask a question? So just to be clear with that, so are you basically surmising that the Masons were a part of the infrastructure of what we would term the Tartarian culture? Like,
from what I can gather, what's happened is when we see these cities that are completely abandoned, and then all of a sudden there's all these people that are flooding in, and there seems to be some military command because of the white armbands on some of the guys and very official looking directors. You go there, you go there.
Top hat man.
I think what happens is the Masons, because they have the secret knowledge, they're one of the secret knowledge schools. I think they provide adequate rollout of the next builders of that realm. So this is what I mean. This is going to open up a lot of doors that need to be dived into by all these flat Earth or Tartarian study channels. I'm no expert. I'm not claiming to be any expert. My knowledge is a 15th on what many of you, like you guys, are far beyond my studies in Tartaria. But I can certainly point out a lot of things like what we're seeing with the shrine here that are going to lead people to look further into the secret knowledges of these secret schools, not just of the Masons, but the other schools as well. So what do we got on the screen? We've got the shrine still.
Shrine, yeah.
What you also see here, across here, can you see my mouse cursor there?
Yeah.
Okay, this is a second crossing of the main cross down here, and what's pointed here, what's in this point here, is the flame. This is the flame that's been taken out of the spirit of our man, of our realm.
Oh yeah, okay? Right.
This was done by Queen Elizabeth at some stage. She took the flame of man, she took the flame out of the spirit of man.
So it used to reside inside the actual.
That's
building.
correct.
Yep.
Also outside there used to be what was called a pool of reflection.
Yeah.
And that was for us to go down and reflect on our ancestry, lest we forget, right? And I've sat a meeting with one of the RSLs and shown them a particular flag, and they had absolutely no idea of the flag. And our light horsemen infantry carried that flag into battle. And it's when you have a look at the video that hopefully we'll be able to have a look at a little bit of, when you know what that flag means and wash aside all of the bullshit of the people that are trying to lead people away from that flag and the power it has, you get to stand in authority. And the video will show you exactly what sort of authority that commands. The police certainly tiptoe around me now. I've held an authorised King James Version Bible of 1611, 400-year-old law book that most people think is a story about a sky daddy. I've held it out to them, and the policeman put both hands in the air, took 2 steps back and said, "I can't touch that." Okay, that is a law book that is not about some big flowing white-haired dude in the sky that's going to save you all. There's one entity that's going to save us, and that is we the people. It's right here and pictured in the shrine. It's the realm that we stand in our authority with the Father and the Son. I'm going to flick another picture up here.
Just on that, so was it the Masons that built the shrine originally? Do you know, or do you have an opinion? Or
undoubtedly it would have been.
And so it was built with the flame, and then the Queen's come along and basically gone, "Nut, get that out of there." And that's like removing the soul, the spirit, basically. I'm going to touch on some simple stuff here, but at some stage we'll do another one. I'll get all my ducks in a row because this was rather short notice. But I'll get a lot more ducks in a row, and we'll do a proper in-depth look at it, because that there is the Father and the Son standing back to back. What you see here, another reference to Raiders of the Lost Ark, is the Ark
Covenant.
of the Covenant. Yes, it's the sacred. Oh, my hairs! It's the sacred covenant. And inside there's an authorised King James Bible. Everything's right here in the shrine to map it out. If you look on the doors, there's the imperial crown, because what we're standing in now, what we see in our military is we see the Australian Imperial Forces that were active prior to a certain point in history, and then there was some overlap during the Vietnam and the Korean Wars of both the Australian Imperial Forces and the Australian Defence Forces. And on those 2 shields, on their coat of arms, there are 2 very different crowns. The Imperial crown with the completely rounded off top was the crown of King George V, who was coronated right here. That's right, we had a king coronated on our land that they won't tell you about. They're trying to lead you away from. And the second crown that's depicted is the St. Edward's crown, which is the Catholic crown that Queen Elizabeth was coronated with in England. That was the big disconnect, where the Sescabée was completely handed over to the Vatican, and we then got infiltrated. And how far do I go on this one? If you look up on the Australian government website, there's the Australian Treaty Series. And the Australian Treaty Series of 1910 shows us a very particular date. I will try and get it up in the background when we do a bit of a break here in a second. But it shows you a very particular date that everybody now celebrates as Australia Day. It's not, it's Occupation Day. It's the day that there was an order set in The Hague, the International Court, for them to come in and recover a debt of war, which Queen Elizabeth split up all her nations, or all the dominions, and divided the debt that she'd run up with the global military complex, the IMF, whoever you want to call them, they're all the same crew, and distributed amongst her nations. Then the nations all got put into bankruptcy, which we've just come out of. And this is all stated on that treaty series. You can see it, the recovery of a war debt, the laws and customs of war on land, of the Geneva Convention. The whole lot is mapped out, is showing everybody in the treaty series right there. There was the first fleet that sailed into Sydney Harbour. That was the occupation. That's when the blue flag officially flew into our lands. And what the government have done now is they've retracted every bit of that federal land flag off every reference they can get online to lead people away from it and to hide it away from people standing in the true power of the Anzac.
Which would cross-reference with what the Strongs were saying last week.
Yes, very correct. Very, very correct. And what they're going beyond that even. I've been of the firm belief for many, many years, and I've said to everybody, cut yourself and we all bleed the same colour. We need to realise that we all came from an origin. And there was another video where New Zealand have done some awesome studies into the origin of man, and to tell you about how the Vatican spent millions and millions of dollars investigating the original line of bloodline of Earth, the Adam and Eve, so to speak, remembering that it's not no Sky Daddy story. It's all allegory. It's all secrets that are hidden there for those who wake up to study and stand in their truth like you guys are doing. There ain't no shade of the light on you guys. I'm telling you right now, you guys are not hiding in any shade of any truth. And that's why you're so powerful. And they push back on you guys. Not so much the Tartaria stuff, but when you start mentioning other things that we won't mention, they certainly censor you.
Yeah, the Tartaria is like, Marty, Tartaria is like a secret doorway online at the moment, you know, like we can talk but we're not censored yet, because it's not like, it hasn't been booby trapped by the algorithms yet. So it's like giving us a platform that allows these sorts of amazing open dialogues, probably one of the last ones on earth, really. So can I ask you a question then? So if you're linking this architecture to Freemasons, how old do you think this building is? And then are you suggesting that the buildings that were here in Melbourne before it got settled or found dead, were they Masonic architecture going on? Like, how old is this building dated?
So I was prepared for this question. No, the building was not built in prior times. It was certainly built when it was all mapped out with the telescope and everything. But what I'm trying to get across here, and I'll flick across and we'll get away from the Father of the Son, so you okay. Oh, just to finish off this, as you can see on the screen, there is the Father, there is the Son, and the Holy Spirit is the 62,000+ men, women, children that gave their lives to give us our freedoms on this land. Okay, I'll finish that there, because it just goes real deep. And as I said, I'm no full expert. I know enough that I can shed some light and get some people interested and certainly move forward. We'll just flick through these very quickly, because I know you guys are limited and I don't want to steal too much of your time up. Next one, there you go. There's where the foundation stone is. Greater love hath no man that lay his life down for his friends. That's the missing part of it. Biblical scripture, and that shows that those who lay their lives down, like the 62,000+ men and women, invoke the power of true love vibration on the frequency scales. Okay, and that's what they're scared of. That's why the social distancing is taking place, because they know when we step back to our ancestry, and I've just got massive tingles up my spine again, when we step back to our ancestry and invoke the love that they gave for us with their lives, spilt their blood, then we are in our true power. And they have to distance us our 6 feet so that our auras don't cross and we don't awaken each other with the transfer of knowledge through the ether. Yeah,
That makes
so that's
total
that.
sense.
I'll stop that one there.
Well,
And
that's really
that's where the light shines, basically. Is that the light in the middle of it?
that is
Yeah.
indeed. That's
all right on
exact-
love.
That's
Well,
where
that
it
makes
is.
Yeah.
total sense, because if we look at last year with disclosure, like a lot of the world's within the truth-seeking movement, a lot of people's energetic focus became on the patriot movement, this movement, and a whole new level of respect for these men and women. And Trump's whole campaign was about like building that respect again for the servicemen and women, and like the work they've been doing with whatever consciousness you have on it, with you say Alliance or White Hats or whatever, but there's this force that's out there, like serving us, serving the light, serving the truth, serving this like this war game we're on in all different planes. So yeah, I mean, when you give your life selflessly to protect others, there is no greater love than that.
True. Now here we see the flame of the spirit of man taken out of the inside, out of the heart. Okay, so that's I'll just show you this one.
That's poignant, man. Yeah.
It's the secret knowledge that they like. The enslavement is just incredible. Now, what I want to show on this picture here is, see the top here.
Yeah.
For one,
missing the capstone.
Well, I'm still trying to find photos back from the construction, because as is everything else, there seems to be a whole heap of construction photos that are missing. What something that people need to be aware of right now is they've actually, I don't know if it's gone through, I have to check it up again, but they were passing legislation through to have the shrine revamped, refurbished. And this is a very, very important point that we need to be on top of at the moment with people's studies. I'm just recording what I'm showing on the share screen at the moment. But the capstone, what's happening with the antiquity tech on the top here is they're blackened off. So somebody needs to have a look at that a bit closer and just what shape it actually is. I'm going to try and get down there, or Kelly, if you can get down there.
Yeah.
It's pretty guarded at the moment. But,
yeah.
we'll
Worst time in history to get down there, but I'll do my best, Marty.
We'll talk further on that one, because there's ways that you can push through the authority that they have using what I'll show you in a few minutes. I'll get it all lined up, ready to rock and roll. I'll put myself on mute again for a little bit. But
my grey hair is helpful. I look less threatening with some grey hair at the front. I've noticed.
I don't know. Not for the coughs. That means I'll push you over and spray you in the face with something.
No, I'm fairly certain that we know the exact. You'll see in a few minutes when I show you what's going on.
So
it's unquestionable. I've had people that have left speechless after seeing it and just gone, "What the hell? How the hell did you do that?" And how we did it was we used the correct line of authority with the correct teaching and the correct language.
And the correct spell behind you.
The spelling,
the language spell and resonance behind you. Yeah.
And of course the correct law reference in hand. As the policeman, he took 2 steps back, threw his hands in the air.
The KJV.
Marty, you're sounding like a master Dumbledore here, like with elegance over the spell ritual.
I'm far from it. There is a whole team. Like when we were putting that together, we had about 3,000 people working on it.
Wow.
So there's a whole movement of people that know of this knowledge, and all those red flags out there, some are maritime flags and some are land flags. And when people realize the difference and know how to invoke that land and get out of their maritime jurisdiction, then you step into the true power of it, and they can't do anything but put their hands up and tell you, "I can't touch that." You're not an enemy of the state. You're walking as naked owner of the land. The Indigenous stood side by side with us and went into contract and became the realm which this shrine represents. And they fought right beside us, blood bleeding the same colour as we did. and we all came from them, as we found out with the Stephen and Ewan Strong works. We are all the same bloodline.
Mm.
They are our ancestry. That's where everything's come from. I've called the Ayers Rock the foundation the foundation stone of man for many, many years. Yeah, so I'll mute off. You guys keep going with your stuff. I'll get this video all lined up, ready to rock and roll, and we'll have a look at it hopefully.
Oh, cool.
Amazing. So it's going to be your challenge, Marty, is going to be to prove to us that this building was actually built recently enough, and that it's not the tip of a giant underground building, and that there are some level of construction photos out there that don't just involve scaffolding around the columns, which I couldn't find. So I'm like really interested to see how we date this building, because like as far as Tartaria goes, it ticks all the boxes. So I'm really interested in this concept that the Masonics, who have been like the Freemasons, have been really you know, like aligned with the dark agenda in the truth-seeking movement, and yet potentially we do live in an inverted environment. Potentially they were actually the remnants of the Tartarian consciousness. I mean, get fucked. Wouldn't that be a little twist to the story?
I call it smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
Everything is either completely back to front, or it's that clouded over with smoke that it's your sight of what's really there is completely a delusion.
Yeah, no, I
But,
totally agree.
I certainly hope that you can dive in, and because there is some stuff hanging off the side of the shrine that is very Phoenician for sure, sure. Whether it's been slapped over the top later on by the Queen Elizabeth crew or what is another thing.
Which would be an interesting link as well, wouldn't it? You know, that makes them Phoenicians.
Yeah. Well, this is why I had to get with you guys. I've been trying to chase this down for a while, but I had to get with you guys because with the knowledge of people like you guys and Martin Liedtke, we're going to blow this thing apart. Like you'll see in the video, the authority that we stood with, if we can pull this apart further and take it right back into Tartarian times, well, man, that's just going to knock these assholes on their butts.
Yes. Wow, that's a whole nother angle I'd never even considered, you know, that we can somehow get back to our lawful rule that we had that was taken from us through this research somehow. That's just... I mean, just keeps getting bigger, this topic, doesn't it?
And like, if you look at like Australia, because obviously my farm's out in the outback, so I've spent like the last 10 years like traveling around rural inland Australia, and even like the furthest away, smallest little village always had a Masonic lodge, and they always looked with the columns, and it would actually make sense that if the Masonics were like the last sort of generation of the Tartarian builders, like, or the Tartarian population, that you know, the continents were scattered with Masonic lodges. It's almost like their scout hall, like they, you know, wherever they went to scout out the, I don't know, I'm just speaking at the terrain, you know, there was a lodge. And it's really startling and obvious in Australia because, you know, to build a Masonic lodge out in a town that has 500 people, that's 1,000 k's inland, like it doesn't make sense. And yet they're always there, and there's always a shrine there's always a war shrine, Masonic lodge, and a shrine of remembrance in every single one of these tiny little towns and villages. So
it's like a religion, really, isn't it? I mean, it's not that different to putting a church everywhere. The only difference is well, actually they do have books, don't they? But they just don't they just have a different look, don't they? I mean, they've got their doctrine and that they just don't say, look, we're a religion, and that. But
oh yeah, for sure.
When you look into it, it's pretty much the same kind of an organization.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I believe it's creator's law. It's the whole, we are a collective consciousness, undoubtedly. Nobody can deny the fact that this world, this realm that we all live in scientifically is vibration, frequency, light, sound. No one can deny that there is something much bigger than us. No one can deny it. it's irrefutable. Even science, once you go into the deeper sciences, they tell you consciousness came first, definitely. There had to be consciousness before there was a materialistic, atomistic world.
Consciousness and energy equals reality. Consciousness and energy creates reality. The fundamental teachings.
We are just all a tiny separate perception of a collective consciousness. That's all we are. We are the collective consciousness or creator, experiencing every facet, all the negative, because there cannot be any light without darkness and darkness without light.
Yeah.
We are just working towards the best of everything.
Absolutely. Well, like, I'm really intrigued by the concept of taking the Masonic Freemasons out of the, like, taking the inversion on that. And it's just like when you mirror the idea of Jesus and Lucifer in the Bible and how they're pitched as polar opposites, but in actual fact, according to the, like, the Gnostics and the books that were removed from the Bible, Lucifer and Jesus are the same person. And, you know, it was Jesus that offered the apple in the Garden to Eden. So we've got like this, but we've been programmed that Lucifer's represents evil and satanic, and then Jesus is good and light. And then there's this whole thing going on. So, I mean, you know, we've really been presented with the Freemasons being negatively geared towards service to self, and have been in opposition to the truth-seeking movement. But it would make total sense to me that they were actually originally our
Look at Manly P. Hall. I mean, this is the thing. This, you know, whenever, you know, people start jumping up and down, oh, everything Freemasons, it's Masonic, it's all evil. You know, I just think, well, what about Manly P. Hall? And there's other ones too, that there's clearly teachings out there, but it's like everything. You know, there's good and bad, right?
That's why I state to everybody, you really need to look into the history of Masonry yourselves, because it doesn't take much before you actually uncover the fact that they started as a very, very honourable and virtuous group of sacred knowledge school. And it was all about passing on the knowledge. And that's what we need to take from it now, because they're that infiltrated now that nobody knows who's who anymore in the zoo. They're all a bunch of...
Everyone is lost at sea at work.
Trying to spy on each other and claim the glory, and there's so much ego involved in it, and it's craziness. And as we can see, the shrine yesterday, they pinned people down and shot people in the face. Like these guys really need to, you know, take a good look at what they're doing to the people, especially on holy grounds. Channel 7 stated it. That is a sacred site. Unfortunately, a lot of the people were being what's called belligerent down there, and hopefully we can get past the belligerence and show people how to stand in the correct line of authority and what they should be doing there. If there's one message that we can get out quickly to the people that are protesting at any of the war remembrance sites, because they are all holy ground. They are somewhere where we go and we practice our faith and give our gratitudes to our ancestry. And it is the way to invoke that true love. And what you need to do is sit in silence and fly the correct heraldic devices to show that you know of that land, the correct line of authority, and how to anchor it, as on the doors of the shrine there's the anchor it into the land, because it's all about stepping out of the maritime jurisdiction of the Freemasons.
Back on land. Yeah, heraldry, that's another word that they took away from us, isn't it? You know,
we've got a whole heraldry office actually set up, heraldic office set up for those into armory. We've got a crew that actually will help you take your family shield and add to it, coat of arms rather, and add to it, because to use your coat of arms from a previous generation without adding to it and adding to the symbology of what your family gave to the realm and what you added in creation to it, then you will be standing in dishonor. There's 4 ways to act or to respond to contract, to a dishonorable and to a honorable, which we can get into another time. But certainly we've got a whole infrastructure set up of people waiting to help people and guide them home to stand under that Anzac line of authority. And hopefully, Kelly, we can go way beyond that with people's study of what happened. If anybody's got pictures and stuff out of there, I'm pretty close to getting a server up online of a whole heap of storage of all sorts of information and media. It's going to be rather difficult, and people need to look at the recent changes. Everybody's probably been slowing down on the internet. There's recent changes in security and surveillance acts of government. So be aware of that, please.
You know, Marty, today that they've blocked all the live feeds from the protests.
Yes, I do. I had friends I've got friends that are down there. One guy that I used to work with a while ago, he actually rang me and he said they've blocked off most of the streets and people can't get in.
Yeah.
So anybody that's got any info would be great. They are on the right path. They're slightly off with the line of authority, which we're hoping, and you guys are going to be a massive impact to this. We're hoping to get the federal land flag into the public's eye, and I've already spoken to a couple of flag manufacturers to get some product made up so that we can distribute.
Awesome.
So, cool.
So what's the name of your group? There's a website and stuff, is there?
There's a few at the moment, and I'll stop there for now because we have to tread
just
very
let us know and we'll
cautiously.
put all the links below.
Yeah, there's a lot of people's websites. Know Your Rights group, they had their website taken offline, and at the moment,
did they?
When was that?
I didn't know they were offline.
In the last couple of days.
Oh
God, really?
So yeah, there's a lot going on, and we just want to tread cautiously because we're so close. We are so close.
Yeah, we fucking are. We're so
I agree. I think I think it's teetering at the, you know, as we are.
We're feeling it.
What were your thoughts on the earthquake yesterday, Marty?
Okay, yeah, that's a ripper. My whole house shook.
Yeah.
And
was it an earthquake? Was it a weapon?
I've actually got I'll try and flip it up on the screen.
Was it a dumb? What was it from your thoughts?
Okay, now, number one, Earth is definitely, there's some wicked stuff going on with Earth resonance, and I get outside and ground out every day, and if I look up at my Anzac flag that flies on my roof, I look to the east as the sun comes up, because it's all about the rising of the sun, not of the setting of the sun. That's a little trick there.
Yeah.
But Earth is certainly waking up. But I'm more thinking that because of what happened at the CMFEU, they are quite capable of manipulating Earth's weather and plates and everything.
Yeah.
And what I'm thinking, it was most likely a firing of low frequency or ultra low frequency waves down a old volcano. Oh, and that's another. I've got some stuff to show you on volcanoes too. Yeah, they've fired something down one of the old volcano or fault lines, and they've woken up the plate and got some plume to push up, the volcanic magma plumes to push up under the ground, which has caused that earthquake. There was actually 7 yesterday and more today. Of different magnitudes, which I'll just share this top screen if I can. Minimize this one.
And do you think they did that symbolically with the equinox, or did they do that directly with the protesting? What was their intention?
Well, it was a full moon, and they're trying to. Okay, I believe, it's my opinion, that what's happening is they are trying to wake people up, but not to the point where people are going to come out and cause mayhem, because you look at how a lot of these people are reacting, like CMFEU the other day, it just got violent. You look at the Shrine was a little different because it was really not provoked by the people. It was completely, the first engagement was done by the police. Disgraceful act, and the police and the military all need to wake up to what the hell is really going on, because now you're seriously causing harm and damage to the people. And I can't see how they're going home at night and resting their heads without
I agree.
feeling some serious shame on what they've pushed out.
Oh, it's disgraceful. I was going to ask you, you mentioned that they were all standing behind the line on the outer circle, that the squared circle.
Yeah.
Was it like, what was the, catalyst for them to go over that line and start moving in? Did something happen that like?
Okay, yeah, it certainly did. They were given 3 warnings. They were given an exit plan 3 times.
Yep.
And thus the Holy Trinity, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. There's so many trinities. Trinities are right through every religion. It's a sacred. It's the spell cast. It's the trick of the spell casting. Right, say it 3 times. And they were given 3 opportunities. Same works in contract law. I've got trespass sign on my letterbox or on my front fence, halfway between my front fence and the front door, and then on my front door. They won't come to my front door because when they do, and there's precedent law set there on the trespass notice, when they do, they then invoke the fine that's on that trespass notice. Okay, that's how powerful the Trinity is. And
Nice.
Once people stand with the correct knowledge and correct line of authority, you will certainly get the power of the policeman taking 2 steps back and put his hands in the air. Because if he had to touch that Bible, he then had to do the will.
Burst into flames.
he then becomes the constable. What you're going to find is they're not using the word constable anymore because it's being a constable. He's sworn to protect and serve the people.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a jurisdictional thing. Back
They're
to
all
sorry,
sergeants now, are
they? Yeah.
they? When did they step over the line? Yeah.
So they gave
3
them
warnings.
3 exit plans down St Kilda Road, and they then didn't speak back about that. They didn't stand in that line of authority and rebut
it. Yeah.
put their claim or dismiss their claim, and therefore it was fact. And then they stood onto the inner circle and then took aim and fired, and all the disgraceful behaviour that we saw rolled out.
It was. Yeah.
What was interesting was the police officer there on Ruckshan's feed that stood in close, and I think he was speaking to a bald guy with some tats up his neck and stuff. He was actually the police officer that you're going to see in the video that I show you shortly. We're thinking he was the exact same police officer.
Okay.
So there's certainly.
So they do know some stuff, because a lot of them just don't seem to know what is going on or their jurisdiction, but obviously they know the jurisdiction that'll get them in jail or get them in a lot of trouble, do they?
Yeah. Well, the Geneva Convention, the Libre Code, they all map out very, very clear terms and definitions of what can be used in war. And once they break those laws, they then, and we've seen it, even the Australian Defence Forces have collected up guys that acted outside the rules of warfare recently in Iraq and Afghanistan, and they've charged them and taken them to court-martialed them. So they are well and truly aware of it. And this is why when we, I'll show you the video in a second, when we did the shrine stuff, what happens was we told them that we respected they had a job to do, and we then told them that we would do what we were there to do, practice our faith, pay our respects to our ancestry, and we would move on accordingly, because somebody was there that was actually an infiltrator that organised the media and the cops to try and diffuse what we were doing. They've been paid, basically.
Yeah, but there's lots of them now.
Dishonourable, and the guy, his grandfather was actually Anzac too. Which is,
God.
But
all right, show us this video.
Just on the screen there is the earthquakes. That was the 7 from yesterday. Just quickly, we'll go through. There's some orange ones here. I don't know if you can see the orange circles there, and there and there. They were from today. Sorry, reds are today. So 4 today, 5 today. Oranges are yesterday, but some have dropped off because it's obviously out of the last 48 hours before it happened. So yeah, there's that, and then the video is right here. Can we see that?
Yep.
Okay, I'll full screen it and I'll push the play button. If it's too loud, just let me know and I'll turn it down a little bit.
Yep, it's halfway through. You need it at the start.
Yeah, we're at 14 minutes. This was done in every state around Australia. We're at the shrines in every state. We unfortunately couldn't organise an elder to do a smoking ceremony here in time, and we were a little more rushed because the police were pushing hard because our shrine is the important one for the country. It's the one with the foundation stone. It's the one that's on the King's Domain, that leads to Prince's Highway, that leads all the way into Canberra, goes, I think it's into King's Highway or something up there, King's Parade or something up there, and it ends right at the feet of King George. There's a statue of King George in Canberra, and that's where it ends.
And that was who you said was coronated in Australia, was it?
That's correct.
So that's the English King George, right? Is in Victoria. What's her name? Bloody Elizabeth's dad, was it? Is that right?
No.
Who?
Yeah, I can't count them.
I think he was.
Wasn't that the mad? Wasn't King George the mad one?
Yeah. Well, who knows, hey?
Like in Brighton, he had a big palace in Brighton.
I think so. I'm pretty sure you're on the right track with that one.
Cool.
He got depicted as being mad and very tyrannical and all the rest of it. But I'm going to say, who knows? Because he stood in the right crown, that's for sure. And it all went south after Victoria. Victoria was known as being very tyrannical as well.
And here we are in the state of Victoria.
That's
right.
We're
literally living in the state of the mental disposition and intention of Queen Victoria.
Yeah, and then you go into some other studies on spiritual and how to reincarnate. And why she spent so much time planting that stone in a very particular place. I believe it's about the incarnate or the reincarnation as to what's going to happen on the next great reset. So maybe she's coming back in spirit once again through that very, very particular place of that foundation stone. So
interesting. All right. All right, let's go. Let's see this.
Video.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. We prepared documents, as I said. This I've got a copy of. I'll try and get it scanned in so we can post it, and hopefully we can get a group well and truly looking at all the stuff that we've studied for a long time now. But here we go. I might just pause during it and just give little updates of things that happened. Oh, we have no sound. Do we have sound?
Not yet. There we go. Oh.
The police will issue fines to those involved in an anti-mask protest on the Shrine of Remembrance this morning. Alan Murphy reports.
Is that loud enough?
Well, there's police on horseback and plenty of officers on the ground, but the only other people gathered here at the Shrine of Remembrance are members of the media. It appears that many of these protesters have been scared off by warnings from the police force and the Premier saying if they gathered, it would be an illegal gathering.
Okay, what I want to point out here very quickly is this. The two differences between the flags. A maritime flag is 2:1 ratio or close to it. These federal land flags, you can pick very easily as to the federal land flag. It's 2:3 ratios. That is 2 measurements down this way and 3 measurements across this way. The 6-pointed star is as is above, so is below. Don't take it as a Star of David Jesuit thing. It's, it points straight up the centre of the St. George's Cross, which at some stage got double crossed. There's the language, the trickery, the symbology. This star here always points across the baseline. The stars go in order of magnitude in the sky. The small star, which you can just see here, is 5 points. This one's 6 points, 7 points, 8 points, 9 points. If you watch the centre of that and that going straight across there and the Southern Cross is slightly skewed, you will be right every time. There's a website in WA who creates these. We've got another guy in Melbourne here that creates these. I'll post some links. You can get online and certainly order. Express ship it to yourself because it is imperative that you understand and do not carry a maritime flag. You must carry a land flag. I will keep going from there.
And they would all be fined and potentially arrested. There were a few
Notice the date here, 26th of January. There is Occupation Day, my friends. It's not Australia Day at all. Australia Day is the fourth Friday in July every year.
Who gave it a red hot crack this morning. There were about 30 people gathered at the shrine as the sun rose. They had a moment's silence and there were a couple of speeches before.
That was our bishop there you saw. This is the master of our armory or heraldic office. This is Mr. Infiltrator. You'll notice all of us have got masks on. They tried to tell us that we're anti-maskers on. This guy's got no mask.
Officers moved in and told them what they were doing was illegal. They moved away without any particular fanfare, but they were waving the red ensign flags, which they say is the true fed.
That's me, an updated photo. This is the police officer that we are sure we spotted yesterday.
Flag of Australia. These protesters are saying that today is the Commonwealth Day of Australia and they have every right to claim their right to freedom. Organisers of the protest have told 9 News that any police members who moved them on were actually committing a war crime and would be held accountable. But it seems.
Notice the treaty here, International Convention Concerning Laws and Customs of War on Land. Okay, Australia Day, occupied. We were then occupied and forced under the laws and conventions of war on land. This was set in The Hague. So international court, we are now basically occupied by a foreign military administration to recover a war debt.
There's no crimes being committed here at the moment. It was scheduled to kick off at 10 a.m. and police will remain here until the coast is clear.
Okay, what you just saw there is the media's presentation of it. What comes next, and unfortunately we didn't get the audio of it, what comes next is what we rebutted it with and what we showed the media and showed the police, and now you're going to see the true power of standing in the correct line of authority. What we were doing was consecrating a flag. We were basically using a heraldic process to re-embed the Anzac land flag, the federal land flag, back into the shrine. I thought I'll turn it down and I'll narrate a bit of this as we go along. So here they're giving us their lockdown spiel. We need to get out of here. And we offer the information. We refer to the information that the police and the federal and state governments got passed on. And as you can see, the media crew come in nice and close to get what they think is going to be some good footage to portray the lie that they did on their news channels. What we did was we handed them a copy of the document you saw before, and later on they get our extended document that was sent to the state and federal parliament to let them know exactly what we were doing. We proclaimed what we were doing. We public noticed it. We gave them everything they needed to have to know exactly what was going on. Now there, the media get told to get the hell out, to move back, because what happened was they pushed us and pushed us. I'll just stop it there for a second. They pushed us to a point where they were going to act further. So then we brought to the table the fact that we're on holy ground here and we're practicing our faith ceremony. We're paying our respects to our ancestry on our holy ground, and for them to breach or engage with us then became a war crime under the conventions, and rules of war that are set in every country across our lands, not just here, across every single land. The Labour Code must be abided by, all the conventions, every single one of them must be abided by. And we use that to tell them exactly, we know who you are and you are not us. You are not the people. You represent a foreign administration, and you need to get the hell off our holy ground so that we can do what we need to do. We respect that you have a job to do, and we will get done what we need to get done, and we will move on so as not to incite any other action by any other group. They were kind enough to say we have 2 minutes. What happened, and you'll probably see a little bit of it, is I sat there and I timed the 2 minutes, and the police went and stood and bowed their heads when we had a minute, sorry, they went and stood while we read our stuff, and I motioned the policeman my wrist. I had to wave to get their attention, and then I held 2 fingers up saying 2 minutes time, and they went another 2 minutes. So they were very, very cooperative with what we were doing and certainly honoured us in that way. And then he gave us another 2, and I waved my hand in the air again, 2 minutes, watch. And he said another minute. We wrapped it up, and then they stood in a minute's silence with us to pay respects. So I'll let you watch the next couple minutes where they walk off. We were certainly respectful of the job they had to do the whole time. And that's why they gave us extra time and didn't make a scene. Now, no one's getting arrested, no one's getting fined, and they walk off and they let us continue. That, my friends, is the power of the correct line of authority using the 62,000 men and women that became our Holy Spirit, symbolically of this realm.
Do you think that could have worked yesterday, Marty, at the protest? Do you think
it would have worked for sure if they just had have sat down and had a sea of the red land flags there? They would have left quite promptly, because that's what the people, sorry, I'll mute this off completely, I'll leave it running, but I'll mute it. That's what the people need to realise, is us standing up as a people is that being bound to the land. We need to, because the people are of the land. The person is the maritime fiction. The people is a singular or a plural. And when you can anchor yourself in holy ground to the land with the correct heraldic device, then you actually invoke all the admiralty laws right back into creation law. As we've seen with the shrine, there's creation law happening there that they will not cross the line of. If they cross that line, they know exactly where they're headed, and they will be trapped in the lower dimensional, lower frequency realms that are the eternal flame, or the unpeace or unrest of the eternity in hell.
And so this is obviously at the shrine. So is that flag itself, does that work in other situations as well?
Well, I've got court order. I've been battling through family law courts, and I've had them cancel a hearing on me as soon as I send them affidavits or documentation to put into the hearing. I've had them cancel a court hearing 20 minutes before because of the documentation they've received. I've been in the courtroom and got one statement off dissolving the trust on them. I've been muted. They've told me they can't hear me until the end, and I had to punch everything into chat, and that gave them opportunity to choose what they read out of what I was typing in. They will play every trick on you possible to stop you from setting precedent. And the most recent time, knew they were just trying to take up my time and energy in what they were doing. And I asked for a signed sealed copy by the magistrate of the court, and they sent me a extract signed by a registrar. And upon request of the signed sealed copy from the magistrate, they told me that they would only give me an extract as the magistrate had redacted part of the order and refused to give it to me, and he himself could not unredact that order. So they'll play every dirty trick. But yes, that flag will give you that line of authority wherever you take it. It will work.
I mean, it makes total sense to me. Like, just, you know, like it's honestly, I'm referring back to Harry Potter, but you know, like it's like just as a metaphor, as an archetype, like we know that words are spells. We know that our whole conception of reality has come through the spells bound, that we're spellbound, the spelling that we do in relationship to understanding reality. We understand that there are frequencies and resonance that are bound to those spells, and we have been completely like removed from understanding the power of our ability to generate those sorts of conscious, energetic, whatever you'd call them. I mean, like, what would you call them? Sigils, magic,
intentions.
Yeah, I mean, so why, and as we go through this Tartarian realm, like the truth is going to make itself known, and sovereignty is definitely a part of Tartarian consciousness. Like, you can't even get down this rabbit hole without crossing paths with your sovereignty and sovereignty law and understanding who you are in this structure, this legal structure around us. So from my end, I believe that what you're talking about, Marty, is has truth in it, and it resonates, and there's probably so much more magic bound to it than we really understand. But I think at the end of the Tartarian like rabbit hole, all of these worlds will become one like amazing understood truth, because like we all have little parts of it, don't we? And it's like it's hard to pull all that expert information into our heads, you know, like you kind of got to dedicate 20 years to each little fragment in order to bring it in. But when we all come together, it's like we can add our expertise and see a bigger picture. Like if the Freemason stuff, like that inversion of the Freemasons, if there's truth in that, we'll find it down this rabbit hole. It will be there. The Freemasons linked to the original architects, linked to potentially the Tartarian culture that we lost in the reset, will make itself known. And I feel the same here, true, with what you're talking about. How do you feel, Campbell?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? They came in, of course, we know the flood story, maritime law, we get born, all this kind of crap. So yeah, of course, you know, claiming sovereignty as a land person, a man or woman of the land, is just sidestepping their authority. And that's what, and this is the thing about all this, is it's not that hard. You know, a lot of people think, oh, you've got to go and learn all this legalese and all these things and be able to quote this and that, but you don't really. You just need to know a few simple truths and stand in your power and understand that, you know, no one has the right, you know, to tell you what to do. I mean, look at what's going on in Melbourne, you know, it's like seriously harassing and arresting people for walking down the street.
Well, if there's an actual flag, if there is a correct like flag that you've just brought our attention to, Marty, like there is power and magic associated to that. Just us having the correct flag would be
look what's behind every
boost.
politician. Every time you see a politician, got to have their flags up there.
Oh, now you've brought me onto another point there.
The gold trim.
If you go back through the media presentations that ScoMo's done, and you have a look on the lapels, what you're going to notice is on some of the other officials, there is a very, very navy coloured flag, yet on ScoMo's lapel, there is a very black coloured flag. Now you need to... Okay.
Is that like what the police are now wearing, those black ones?
Yeah, so a lot of them have been told to wind it back because it got linked to a left-wing extremist group. But have a look into, and you got to look a little further. Just the first.
So what's that mean? He's coming under what? Another jurisdiction?
Like a thin blue line, and go to the pictures first and just go and have a read up. What's that other site? Wayora or something. They do a really good coverage of it.
Kiora, is that what it's
Yeah.
called? Yep. QUO.
I'll find it. I'll post you the link.
Kiora, yeah.
But
Question or it stands for question or answer.
So who does ScoMo answer to? What's his jurisdiction?
Well, the black line seems to be, from what people have found out, is the George Soros International UN military force.
BlackRock, State Street people.
Yeah. So, but just go through some of the speeches and watch his lapel. It's thin blue line, and if you look at the pictures, there's the UK has also a thin blue line flag. The US, a whole heap of countries now have thin blue lines.
And none of them are lawful. So this is another literally changing of the flag, right?
They're in admiralty law there. They're in a different jurisdiction. So they have lawful right in their jurisdiction. But what jurisdiction trumps all? And
land, yeah.
If you look at the Genesis and the creation,
from the dirt,
I got to
day
this.
of the earth.
When you're conceived, there's a firmament with waters inside, and then there is conception and the land that is brought up beneath your feet, being the placenta, that you are anchored via the umbilical cord to, is you. That is all in creation right there. It's a macro, microcosm, fractal enlargement of what happened at conception with all of us.
Yeah.
The power.
That's why they don't let your feet touch the ground.
Yes. There's your live born certificate, birth record, whatever you want to call it, and then there's the birth certificate. And what the New Zealand crews are now into is, what happens is, in creation of that trust certificate, that instrument of trust, is they stamp it with your names on your original like birth record. I think it's called a RG9 or R59 form. There is no name given on that live birth record. The name that your parents fill out on that birth certificate application that gives rise to that birth certificate is the name of your placenta, your twin that gave its life for you to have the land come up beneath its feet. You see how powerful this knowledge is now. And once you guys get into it and start hooking in with the shrine and the buildings and the geometric placement, that's what I wanted to touch on with you guys. Have a look at the geometric placement of everything, because that shrine, that north-south line, goes straight past the Anglican Church, which is what our realm was created under, using that authorized King James Bible, right? It was the church. Now that church is owned by the Vatican too, right? But it goes right up, points due north. But that birth certificate is your twin. Therefore, everybody is running around with that birth certificate as identification, dishonorably impersonating the death of the twin that gave their life to give you life. Okay? This is how spiritually they've tricked us all spiritually into dishonoring our twin, right?
God.
My hairs are on end again.
The
Anyway.
summoning of the twin. Gosh, I mean,
God,
we'd find so much metaphor there, so much.
Isn't that? That's wow. I haven't heard that bit before about
No,
the twin.
the summoning of the twin, like, oh my gosh. I think of I just want to I need to chew on that, because I think it will bring up, I think that's an activation code there.
Twin towers, twin poles.
So
Yeah.
what goes along with that, and I'll cut it off here and I'll send you guys some links.
Yeah, awesome.
What comes along with that is, in reference to all of the legislation that's been set, if you look into, and there's many of them, particularly the main one is the Lands Act and the Transfer of Lands Act. You are the Crown, and when you are able to realise and put yourself into the realms that they've used to create that certificate in the ecclesiastical jurisdictions of the Vatican, you can then call yourself the Crown and stand as the Crown. You are the Crown. You are the owner, the naked owner of the Crown land. And this is what is really, really giving people some real power of authority now to actually stand and disconnect and render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and stand in your name, and then honour your twin that gave its life for you, sacrificed its life for you, and take your true power of truth in the light.
So can that be used to actually claim land?
Yes. It can be, it's way beyond claiming land.
Nice. Alloidal titles and all this kind of stuff, yeah?
Allodial, not illodial, because anything, as we've seen in syntax grammar, anything with a vowel and a consonant is the opposite. So if you're accountable, you are not countable. You are not being held to account. If you're countable, you are being held to count, and therefore
you can be counted.
That's right. You appear correctly on the ledger, my friend.
Okay.
You guys are awesome. I've got
jingles.
My hairs are on end everywhere.
Definitely thank
pleasure
you.
Talking to you, Marty. Yeah, a very unexpected conversation. We'll definitely should have. I think we should probably aim to have a more structured show around this exact topic.
Yeah. We'll work some sort of questions out, maybe, you know, and anyone who's watching this, if you've got any questions, leave them in the comments.
Yeah.
Or leave them in the Facebook group. And maybe we can have another talk about the more practical side of things moving forward, and how we can really sort of start to use this power to really start to build the new future, the new earth.
I mean, it definitely feels timely to me. My partner and my work, she's like been working with the aunties in the last couple of days, and like we've been doing a lot of work with the aunties, and there's been a lot of call with the Indigenous coming up, and it's all about claiming that land sovereignty. And this, like, for it to run through the Tartarian consciousness as well, I think is perfectly timed, and it's all leading it back to Australia. Like, it's all happening here in Australia. And like, where has like land sovereignty been contested the most around the whole wide world? It's here in Australia. Man,
all the land right stuff.
It is so wrapped up in where we're heading. So Marty, it's been a real pleasure to have a chat with you. And thank you so much for showing us your information, and let's get you back on the show with a much more structured Q&A, I guess, and let people interact with this information and see how we can bring it to the surface and provide it in love and light as a service to everything that's going on here in Melbourne and the rest of the world, as far as standing our ground and, you know, taking a stand in this time of police takeover, this takeover that we're all undergoing. So thank you, Marty.
No, the pleasure's been all mine. You guys are heroes of mine. So it's been an absolute buzz for me. And yeah, I'll get many ducks in a row, and I'm sure we could point people on a solid path of remedy from here.
Beautiful.
Definitely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marty.
Thank you, Marty. You have a beautiful day.
I'm in the background. You too.
All right.
Cheers, mate. See ya.
Well, it's been a long show, Campbell. We've covered a lot of ground today.
Where are we? Oh, wow. 3:30. Yeah, wow. Cool. Might have to cut this already too.
So any last comments, thoughts?
No, I mean, like, very unexpected. Like, Marty's just jumped on. So perfect timing. Everything's happening, guys. But we know that this is the answer, that, you know, we are the power. No one gets to tell us what to do and rule over us. So all we need is just those, you know, that information, you know, to let the, you know, the conquering force know that they no longer have any power or jurisdiction over us. And let's do it. We'll have another interview, and we can, maybe even look at getting, you know, a chat thing up somewhere, a discourse or something, can really start. Obviously, it looks like Marty's got some groups together, so maybe we could just jump into their groups. It might be easier, but we can definitely use this practically to actually start making some real steps forward and
I mean,
get this done.
Because at the end of the day, wherever you've gone with Tartarian consciousness, like it is magical, and there is a layer of magic that's been stripped from our understanding, and there's all of those magical, fantastical visions and movies we get fed, like it's all there. It's just been covered up and hidden from us. And as we uncover this truth, that's sort of the magic and sovereignty will appear. Like we talked to the Strongs last week, and they were talking about the magic the Indigenous had in their sovereignty, the magic songs, the magic rocks. Like it's a force that's accurate and true. And we will begin to uncover that. And of course, it has to start with sovereignty law, because that's where the magic got stripped. That's the beginning foundations. Yeah. To me, it's like, unknowingly we put a block or an end to the contract of our own sovereign magic, and like chewing on that notion of our twin self, the sacrifice of our own self. Like there's something very powerful in that. We definitely have to deep dive. So
definitely,
to my mind, Tartaria is the most fantastical and magical possibilities, and it's all gonna wire and fire till we're literally walking on those protest lines and just like all doing some symbolic action with the right flag and the right word, and
exactly. I mean, yeah, exactly. We've got to start speaking to the universe, stronger and with more will. Is that the right word?
Definitely,
because we're speaking to it every day anyway, but there's too much blah,
exactly. And you think of the weapons that the police need against us, like these like guns and sound weapons and like so much weapons against little old us, because they know we're all magicians. We just don't freaking know it yet. So as soon as we know it, none of their weapons will have any effect on us. There'll be this like our consciousness will be able to just like push them back to the other side of town in a second through a quantum split moment, and they just won't be in front of us anymore. That's the power that lies within us. We are gonna fucking get there, Campbell. We are gonna uncover this like amazing magic.
If I can just add one little bit in. In the front of the 1611 Authorised King James Bible, there's a section there where there's a dedication, and there's a section for your family tree, your ancestry and everything. When you fill that out, on Campbell's page, it says there, it's our story, not his story. That Bible is your will and your testament. Everything in there that rolls out is what you want and what you want to provide, and standing in honour. So when you use and fill out that front of that book in the correct manner, then it becomes your will and gives you the real power. And that's why the policeman held his hands up and stood back, because it was my will, my testament as a constable of the people. He has to do the will of the people. All you need is one second person, because as it states, where two are there, where two speak, God is there. So you get somebody to dedicate that to you, and all of a sudden there's you, there's another person, and the voice of God to use that in the authority as a law book.
Nice.
The true book of kin. The true book of kin.
Can you still get one of those where you can fill them out, or is that pretty much just the antique ones?
No, word.com.au or Word Bookshop, I think it is. I'll give you the link as well. They still have 1611 authorised King James
reprints.
versions.
Nice. Awesome.
Try and get one that is an authorised King James version. I'll take a couple of photos and send a couple of photos, and you can post them as well.
Ooh, the magic book. The magic book.
I'm walking around with my spell book.
Thank you very, very much, guys. It's been a great pleasure. Sorry it went so long.
No, it was great.
There's so much to it. It's All right, thank you.
Great. Cheers, Marty. Have a good one, mate.
Bye-bye.
Talk soon.
See you, Marty. Bye. All right, we should wrap it up too, Campbell. That's been quite a show. And let's get the magic book. Hello. That was the King James Bible. What was the edition? 16.
What is it?
Oh, anyway, Martin's Marty will put it up for us. But that could be
the 16. Oh God, 48 is it? No.
He's gonna be sitting there going, dude, stop it. But yeah, I mean, amazing. All right, let's leave it there, wrap it up for the day.
Yep.
And
all the links will be below, guys. Go check them out and leave any questions below or post them in the Facebook group. And we'll be back next week, maybe with Marty, maybe with not, but definitely we'll be back with Marty sometime in the near future, and we'll definitely deep dive this topic.
Absolutely. And guys, listen, if you made it this far in the show, and I would love, what would flat thumbs up. And you like the artwork behind me? I'd love to know what building you'd like us to do next. Like, nominate a building that we can get the artwork done for. I'd love to hear your thoughts. All right, guys, thank you so much. We will see you next week.
Yeah, see ya.
Bye.